thought you believed in gun control.
Yes, I believe I should control the gun. It's the men who need to be checked.
Life is Strange is a bad game. But I still love it. Hi, it's been a hot second. I have missed this so much. Let me set the stage. It's around 2017. I like video games. If you watch this channel, it's pretty clear that I think video games are kinda cool. And what were some of my favorites around this time? I mean, there was stuff like Smash Brothers, there was Pokemon, the 5 games I had on my Wii U around this time. I don't have them anymore because I traded them in like the same year so I could get Bayonetta 2 on Switch because my Wii U was broken. That's a whole other story for another time. I don't know where I'm exactly going with this, but there was one game that was at the top of my mind around this time that was a pretty popular point-and-click adventure game. A story-driven one where your choices dictated how the narrative would play out. And that game was The Walking Dead: A New Frontier. Bear with me on this, because there's a reason I'm going to be going on this tangent here. The Walking Dead by Telltale Games is one of my favorite video games of all time. And I don't mean in the usual, I love this game, it's my favorite kind of way that I like to spout a lot. This was the first time a video game actually made me cry. This was the first time I played a video game and truly realized what the medium was capable of as a form of art. It absolutely gripped me with its incredible characters, amazing dialogue, and the feeling that all of your choices had genuine consequences for how you interacted with the world around you and vice versa. And all of this culminated with the relationship you develop with the main character, Lee, and this girl he has to protect, Clementine, leading to one absolute gut punch of a finale that left me absolutely shattered for days after I first played it. This game left an enormous impact on me. So when more games started coming out, of course I hopped on playing them. I thoroughly enjoyed the second season, had some issues of its own, but still stood well as a very good and solid follow-up to one of my favorite games ever. And I was extra excited when the third season was coming out, albeit not without some skepticism. You have to remember, this was when Telltale Games started stretching themselves super thin with their output of games, something that would bite them back years later when they abruptly shut down and took a good few years to recover after being bought out. Seriously, it's practically a miracle that the final season of The Walking Dead even finished and came out as good as it did. But this game in between, A New Frontier? Oh man! This was bad. The game was absolutely everything wrong with Telltale at the time it came out. Constantly on rails, with characters you don't really give a shit about, a narrative that's incredibly rushed, and a general feeling of worthlessness by the end of it. You could completely skip this game and it wouldn't really have any impact on Clementine's story. That's how inconsequential this game ended up becoming. I have a lot I clearly want to say about this game, but maybe we'll save that for another time. Anyways, the reason I tell you all this is because Telltale was not looking hot around this time and was losing their stranglehold on the episodic adventure game format they repopularized at the time, which most likely played a role in allowing developer dontnod to come in and filled that gap with the first Life is Strange game. And it especially hit around this time for me, as I had been fed up with Telltale after playing this game. I had finally gotten a PS4 for my birthday in 2017, and just a couple months later, look at that, Life is Strange was free to PlayStation Plus members. This happened at the absolute perfect time. I just needed something that would fill that hole Telltale left, and Life is Strange was exactly that game for me. I remember playing through it and liking it fine enough, but then I finished it. And then I kept thinking about it. And then I started to realize that this game, it's not that great. But let's take a step back real quick. Life is Strange is a series that I can't quite explain my fascination for. On one hand, it's earnest, it's got some charm, it's got some pretty neat ideas. it's got a lot of passion. On the other hand, it also fumbles the delivery of all of that. Every single time. So what we're left with is, to me, a series of games that absolutely fall flat in so many areas, from dialogue, to characterization, to gameplay design, to story beats, but it's always put together in a way that still feels oddly passionate. It's a series that has its faults, and it knows its faults. It really knows its faults, but still keeps pushing on in the hopes that maybe at some point, it will finally stick a landing with all of these elements. There's a sense of honesty I get from Life is Strange that I don't get from other video game franchises, and I want to figure out and get into why. I want to analyze this series, because this series has so many problems. By all accounts, this should be a series that I stopped paying attention to after the first game started leaving a bad taste in my mouth. And here I am, years later, and the only game in the series I never played is the second game. I could just get away with saying it's a guilty pleasure, but something's telling me there's something a little bit deeper there. Let me introduce you to a development studio called dontnod.
Dontnod has now been going a full 6 years and a half. We founded it in June 2008.
Hi, my name is Michel Cor. I'm co-game director and art director.
Hi, my name is Raoul Barbet. I'm a co-game director of Life is Strange.
Hi, I'm Luc Begadust, the producer.
Their first game was an action-adventure title called Remember Me. Ironic title since, no one remembers it. I bet the devs haven't heard that one before. Isn't that funny? It's pretty funny, right? I'm sure you haven't heard that one before. Sorry guys, I can't help it, I'm a comedic genius. It should go without saying that this game didn't leave much of an impact. The game had been in development for about 5 years, but failed to hit any of its critical or commercial targets. It left so little impact that the company almost went into bankruptcy. Bad enough that it seemed like it was total luck that they got a deal with Square Enix to have Life is Strange even be published by them. Pitching a completely and totally different project to them, they ended up falling back to Life is Strange pretty much at the last second. Development for the game had begun in April of 2013. The main drive behind development was a rewind mechanic, expanding further on the time mechanics of Remember Me.
Work on Remember Me, and so there was a huge concept. It was called the Memory Remix, and we were thinking that there's something to be done, and there was lots of discussion between us on how it could be so cool if there is a game with rewind feature when you can do it whenever you want.
It was originally meant to be a self-published, smaller title for the team, but Square Enix, to Dontnod's absolute shock, loved the pitch for Life is Strange and hit the green light on publishing it. Any and all of the game's ideas had to work around the studio's sticky situation. Financial restrictions made them move to an episodic model for the game, with the focus on making a more story and character-driven game above all else. The influence from Telltale was a given, as were other popular games at the time like Heavy Rain and Gone Home, to name a few. The game also took heavy inspiration from the indie game and indie film scene at the time as well, having the story focus on a lot of heavy-hitting topics, from abuse to bullying to depression, and drawing from indie film fests like Sundance. And Square Enix was with them the entire time. Most other publishers squabbled with them over details, including the decision to have 2 female leads in the game, which Dontnod firmly stood their ground on. Square didn't really do this. They just kinda let the team do what they wanted. If that sounds like an anomaly, it is, and we'll be talking about that towards the end of the video. Life is Strange was formally announced at Gamescom in August of 2014, with the first episode being released the following January and episodes continuing to trickle out until October 2015. And seeing how this episodic model was all the rage back then, Life is Strange exploded onto the scene. It sold 1 million copies halfway into its release cycle, it won Game Awards, Golden Joysticks, DICE Awards, all of them for the story, narrative, performances. Dontnod was now an established player in the point-and-click adventure genre. Telltale, for once, had some competition, although that certainly didn't stop them from stretching themselves too thin anyways. Things had completely turned around for Dontnod. Along with a sequel, they were able to easily get a publisher for their action RPG Vampire, and after Life is Strange 2 continued to be a powerhouse in the narrative adventure genre, still going strong to this day. Life is Strange was by all means a complete gamble, and one that paid off for them immensely. Now, depending on where you look, you'll find people fall under 2 camps for the first Life is Strange game. One of them usually matches this glowing praise the game got at release, calling it a genre-defining experience, one of the most profound the industry has to offer, with some of the most in-depth characters to ever grace the medium of video games. The other camp thinks it's hot fucking trash, and will fight tooth and nail to prove that. Now, as far as what I personally think of the game, I mean, it might be clear I'm not the biggest fan of this game, but I don't know, man. If you like the game, it's okay to be wrong.
We knew that we were fans of like TV shows like Twin Peaks or X-Files. They have those trees and the Pacific Northwest feeling.
I think they are a great example of a small community thinking that everybody know each other and everybody is happy, but when you put something inside this community, it could be something supernatural. You discover a lot more.
Okay, let's get into the game itself. Now, let me be upfront about what I'm going to go into here, because I know I'm bound to have some, let's just call it, controversial takes on this game. And I mean that on both ends. I'm not here to needlessly trash on this game front to back, because there are things I remember legitimately liking and even loving about this game that I'm sure those who hate it will start coping and seething at even the slightest hint of praise for this game. But for those of you who like this game, let me just say this. If this game means something to you and is important to you, don't let me or anyone else take that away from you. Believe me, guys, I know what this feels like. I know what it's like having a game that you really enjoy that it seems like everyone else on the planet just absolutely hates. Like BioShock Infinite in recent years, I know has kind of had a turnaround of a lot of people that hate the game now and are being a lot more vocal about hating it. Spyro Dawn of the Dragon, I love that game. That one's like super mixed bag for a lot of people. Modern Warfare 2019, I love that game. I know most COD fans hate that. I don't know, the open season video game for GameCube and GameCube specifically, I don't know.
I can see Timberline from here. It's right over the...
Art affects people in different ways. I can't take that from you, and vice versa. But I also need to be straight with you. I don't really like this game. There are things about this game I also really dislike. Especially when it comes to...
Wrong. You got hella cash.
We'll get to that. So if you're here looking for validation that I'll affirm all the praise this game has been showered with, you're not going to find it here. Yes, it's true that I haven't played this game since that initial playthrough I did in 2017, but I would also be surprised if my feelings on a lot of things for this game really significantly changed. Just like The Walking Dead earlier when I talked about that, this game left a tremendous impact on me. Just not a very good one. But that doesn't mean I won't give credit where it's due. If there's something I do like now that I didn't before, I won't be afraid to point it out. Life is Strange begins with the main character getting their shit kicked in by a tornado. Now, before I get knee-deep into this, I should address that I also chose to replay this game on the Remastered edition that came out a couple years ago. It has a handful of small quality of life updates and touch-ups here and there, and by that I mean they tried improving the graphics. Now let's get this out of the way first. Life is Strange isn't winning any awards in the graphical department. I mean, it looks fine enough, I guess. The art direction is alright, and considering the circumstances this game was made in, with dontnod almost going out of business entirely, I can respect the hustle they made to do the best they could with what they had when it came to this. You'll probably hear me express that sentiment a lot for this game. The game itself could look worse, which means the worst stuff was saved for the facial animations and the character movements. Oh my god. This isn't good. Characters always move with this stiffness to them, no matter what version of the game you play. Nothing really feels smooth or crisp. It's always stilted. And the facial animations are, I'm not even gonna make a joke here. They're just bad. They're really bad. At some points, it's literally like they picked an expression and just kept a character model stuck to that, with no real room for them to emote naturally. It's uncanny. The Remaster collection does attempt to fix this by having updated animations with facial motion capture, but that has its own problems. First up, sometimes characters don't really emote properly in certain circumstances. And what makes the uncanny valley here worse in some areas is that they updated the facial expressions, but second problem, they didn't update character movements. So you get this weird mashup of characters moving awkwardly like the 2015 game with facial expressions from the 2022 remaster. And because of that, you get a lot of moments where these updated face models just look dead-eyed, staring into space more so than the original game. But what's really weird and annoying is how inconsistent this is. Sometimes the remaster looks better than the original game, sometimes it looks worse. Almost like they were selective about which scenes and moments would get the most facelifting. All of that's to say, if you were to go out and get Life is Strange, should you play the original game or the remaster game? The original game is definitely more consistent, but that consistency still doesn't look nice. The remaster game is selective about when it wants to look better or worse. Normally my answer to that would be indifference, if it weren't for Remastered's technical issues. Alright, I need to add this now in the video so I don't forget about this later. This is the part I didn't have in the script that I need to talk about. Do not play the Switch version of this game, dude. Do not play it. Oh, wow, I don't think there's supposed to be flickering going on there. Okay. Man, this game sure does look pretty blurry and crunchy. You guys see that too, right? God, look at that fucking reflection that Max has. That's like half vampire there. Jesus, like she's like partially there. Oh man. Oh man, I don't think water is supposed to look like that. I don't think water even is supposed to do that.
It's cum water. Why is it white?
I feel like if you're like a hardcore Life is Strange fan, you probably already own this. I mainly got it just so I could have a physical copy of the remastered collection here. Shockingly, this one actually came with like a usable code for Before the Storm, which is a game we'll get to probably another time. But yeah, do not buy this version of the game. Even if they just ported like the original one that worked on PlayStation 3 and 360, that probably would have been fine. I have no clue how the optimization on this one is this absolutely bad. I ended up playing Remastered on Xbox Series X, and I had a lot of instances where dialogue was getting cut off, and audio and music just straight up wouldn't play.
Max Caulfield. Taking a break after taking Seattle by storm, huh?
And based on what I looked into, this is just a consistent problem with Remastered that never got fixed. So if you're gonna go with either version, stick with the original. It's probably more accessible and cheaper to get nowadays too. The game starts proper with our protagonist Max waking up in class after having this fever dream. She's attending Blackwell Academy, a prestigious school in the town of Arcadia Bay, Oregon. This school's got everything. High school jocks, the mean girls, an alcoholic principal, and a paranoid security guard straight out of 1984. Literally. Right off the bat, I have two things I want to praise that I've always liked about this game. One, the setting of Arcadia Bay. One thing that's been consistent with these games that I've always liked is that small, hometown-like feel that they exude. You know, the kind of town where everybody knows everyone, seems to be huddled up in its own little bubble. This small town feeling is something I think these games consistently get right. I would probably like living somewhere like this. They do a good job of making it feel homely. Too bad I probably wouldn't want to do it in Arcadia Bay's case since most of the people here suck, but we'll talk about that soon. Second, and more importantly, the protagonist, Maxine Caulfield.
Wowzer.
I really like Max. She's, in my opinion, probably the best part of this game. And naturally, since she's the main character, she gets the most spotlight here. Yeah, there's certain elements here about her that are mostly up to player choice. You can be Arcadia Bay's central nice girl, or you can be kind of an asshole back to everyone else. And what I like about this game and find somewhat impressive is that they approach these scenarios in ways that still feel realistic for Max. Like they would still be ways she would naturally react to these situations the game presents you with. She's soft-spoken, can be aggressively nice, and can be a little bit cringe.
Ready for the mosh pit, Shaka Bra. When a door closes, a window opens. Or something like that. Oh man, are you serial?
Release the crack can.
Whoa. Hello, zombie face. I'm always taking pictures with my eyes.
Must protect my precious, so Max never has to chase it down again.
Right. You look like the cover of hipstergirl.com. Wowzer. 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 Wowzer.
Okay, scratch that. She could be really cringe. But she also doesn't take shit from most people. She stands for what she has faith in. It's believable when she decides to keep her emotions to herself, but it's also believable when she lets them out. She also snoops. A lot. Which I think is a pretty clever way of integrating the point-and-click nature of this game. Instead of only having the main character interact with the world around them, the world reacts back. And the world says that Max is freaking nosy. This is really helped a lot by an awesome performance from Hannah Tell.
I've never played a character that I related to so much. I have a lot of the same issues that she does with her confidence. And so getting to play someone that seemed so similar to me was really an extraordinary experience.
She does a great job of balancing Max's snarky, snoopy attitude with that adorable demeanor she always has to her no matter what situation she's actually in. Yes, it's true that she has a lot of cringeworthy lines. Ones she says, ones she thinks, ones she writes. But in Max's case specifically, I don't really mind this. Like I said, she's a dork. And I can totally see a character like her saying a lot of cringe shit like this, especially when she was 18. Lord knows I've made cringe shit myself at older ages. I think it fits her character, and to me at least, makes her more likable that she's unapologetically a bit of a weirdo. Where I do start to mind this is everywhere else. Because I don't think Max's cringe dialogue is one of the main problems with Life is Strange's dialogue as a whole. The main issue with the dialogue, to me, is that Max isn't the only character that talks like this.
Now you're totally stuck in the retro zone. Sad face.
I'd like to drop a bomb on Arcadia Bay and turn it to fucking glass.
Mr. Badass Football Hero is such a chicken shit.
I wanted to rap about that action yesterday.
This is what happens at these PC bullshit colleges.
Good thing my faithful minions took their sweet time bringing me a towel.
Dr. Warren Graham is in the house. I won't even prescribe you any meds.
You hella saved my life.
Not now, Max. I'm contemplating shit.
I just hate that scrub. And his club.
I'm feeling pretty alpha now.
We would all be hella best friends forever.
Oh yeah? You shouldn't have bitch snitched on me to that fucked up principal.
This week was so shitty that I just wanted to be around a bunch of people trying to have a good time. Even if I hate most of them.
But you absolutely balls the walls did save your friend.
Look, I can buy one character talking like this. Maybe 2 or 3. But almost every teenager or young adult in this game talks like this, and yeah, it's really, really bad. When lines in this game don't stick the landing, it's like they straight up crashed a plane on that island from Lost. It absolutely reeks of a bunch of corporate head honchos getting together and writing down what they think kids these days say. This game came out in 2015. People were not saying chillax anymore. People weren't saying shit like hella, or epic win, or go fuck yourself. Okay, that line is actually so awful, it's kind of great. I want to know who wrote that shit. Take it from my perspective. I was in high school in 2015 and graduated when I played this in 2017. Life is Strange takes place in 2013, when I started high school. Kids weren't saying hella, they were talking about how much swag they had, or going on a date with the bae, or doing something for the vine. Let me put it this way, if this game had come out this year or even a few years in the future, it would not surprise me if we had a version of Chloe saying shit like skibbity or riz every other sentence instead of hella. Ugh, God, can you imagine a Life is Strange game like that? We could have had even more cringe. We could have heard shit like instead of you got hella cash, you got Ohio cash. Oh God, could you imagine that? Oh yeah, we should probably get back to the story. So because of the nature of this kind of narrative, where your choices majorly affect dialogue, character interactions, and in-game events, I'm not going to do the traditional plot synopsis I would usually do, followed by a gameplay breakdown. That goes double for this game, since the gameplay loop is really just walking around and interacting with stuff to progress the story. There's not much in the gameplay department to really analyze. This is about as mostly basic as these games get. But because there's so many options as far as dialogue and what kind of interactions you can have with characters, every person's experience with this game is going to be different. I did try to scour everything I could from the game in this video and only kept the unique stuff to the choices I made, but there are things I'm inevitably gonna miss. That's basically the long way of saying we're analyzing this as I go along. So after class, Max goes to the bathroom to wash up and gets caught up hiding during a scuffle between 2 students. One of them is a rich hotshot named Nathan Prescott. The other is this blue hair girl who will be the bane of my existence for a good chunk of this video, but we'll talk about her soon enough. During this scuffle, Nathan draws a gun out and shoots the student, and as Max reaches out to try and stop it, she suddenly wakes back up at her desk before it happens. Disoriented and testing the waters, Max now discovers she has the ability to rewind time. How on earth did she get this power to begin with? Fuck me, man, I don't know. There's never a reason given for why and how Max gets this power. She just has it now. And the first thing she does is stop Nathan from killing this other student. Rewinding time is this game's main mechanic. You can use this power for mainly 2 things: to solve environmental puzzles that progress the game, or to affect your interactions with other characters. We'll get to the puzzle solving aspects a little bit later in the video, but as far as interacting with other characters, for a minor example, before going back to the bathroom, Max's teacher, Mark Jefferson, won't let her leave without properly answering a question.
Can you please tell us the name of the process that gave birth to the first self-portraits?
I'm sorry, I feel sick. May I be excused?
Nice try, Max. But you're not gonna get away that easy.
Her classmate Victoria gives it, and with this new information, you can rewind time and give him the proper answer before Victoria can intervene.
The Daguerrean process, invented by a French painter named Louis Daguerre around 1830.
For a major example, after Max sets off the fire alarm to save the student and runs out, she talks to the principal and we're confronted with the game's first major choice. You can either tell the principal about what Nathan did, or you can choose to hide it. And I really like what they did here with big decisions like this, because it forces you to think about your choices in a different way than other story-driven games like this would normally do. In a game like The Walking Dead or even Life is Strange games after this, you'll usually have to make a big decision, sometimes in the heat of a moment, and you just have to live with it. There's no going back, you're just left with whatever your natural instinct was, or lock in on one decision after thinking it over for a while. Here, the game gives you ways to see all of your choices you have available and what their possible benefits and consequences could be.
Should I rewind and change my story?
Once you progress past them, there's obviously no going back. But having that option to really see the full weight of your choices and make your decisions based on that is a really great creative choice. One that I'm sure will definitely pay off by the end of the game, right? Right? It may also be during these first few moments of the game that you'll notice something about the other characters. You can kind of feel it when Victoria is shit-talking you and bullying this girl Kate. You can really sense it when the security guard David confronts you. It gets a lot more upfront when Principal Wells gets confrontational with you no matter if you tell him about Nathan or not. And when you go outside and listen to how some of the other students talk to your face. Come to Arcadia Bay, the land of the assholes and the home of go fuck yourself. Most of this game's cast fucking sucks. And I don't necessarily mean like bad and poorly written characters. I mean, these characters are so disgustingly over-the-top petty and downright evil to you. Victoria is a snobby, petty, rich white girl who gets a kick out of bullying everybody while sucking up to teachers like Jefferson. Nathan is a coked-up high school jock that belittles, threatens, and fights multiple people in this game. David is a security guard that uses his authority to talk down on everybody around him, using his excuse of being a war vet to justify it. There are other students who will act high and mighty against you for not knowing the most random shit. Like, sorry I didn't know the exact name of your drone.
Do you know what a drone really is?
A weapon, right?
You read too many conspiracy sites. Warren said you were smart.
Or who this exact photographer was, just so I can look at your portfolio.
They both were famous war photographer images, but you should know the difference. No time for amateurs. No offense, Max.
Or how I'm apparently a poser because I didn't know what this skateboard trick is called.
If you can't even name a simple nose slide or a tray flip, you should walk on.
I mean, maybe this was kind of the point, to really hammer in that this is a rich kid's school full of students and even staff that are full of themselves, but it's so one-dimensional. Many of these characters never really advance beyond the general archetypes that they're given, and if they are later in the game, it doesn't really feel earned. Not to mention too little too late in some cases, but I'm getting ahead of myself. You could argue that's the point, and that's what I got from watching the developer commentary for this game.
David could seem very archetypal.
Yes,
and
again, one dimension at the beginning, but then we are making
episode after episode, you can see that maybe he's very he's got his own reason.
And okay, I can see what they were going for here, but if you don't establish more than one dimension for these characters very early on, you're not gonna give people reason to latch onto these characters. Life is Strange takes way too long to start peeling back those layers for a lot of these characters. A few of them you can get some sense of what they're like beyond their initial archetypes early on. You kind of get that if you're kind to Victoria here in one of the first major decisions for the game, but some of them pretty much have everything peeled back at once towards the final episode. There's only a couple exceptions here. One is Kate Marsh, the girl who was being bullied earlier. She's a Christian fundamentalist and really goes through the ringer in this game. She's generally really quiet and reserved, but at this point early on, there's not much to it beyond that. Honestly, she really just stands out because she's one of the only central side characters that doesn't immediately treat you like shit or throw some snide comment at you. Honestly, kinda sucks. I wish Kate was more of a central character in this game. There could have been another exception here with Warren, one of the first real friends Max makes while she's at Blackwell. He's a dork like Max, but unlike Max, it isn't always in a quirky way. It's in a weird way.
Make sure you watch Cannibal Holocaust.
No fucking way will I watch that.
I laughed my ass off.
He's very obviously into Max, and that plays a pretty central role in their dynamic, and sometimes it can be charming, other times it can come off as a bit creepy. But hey, I guess he's one of the better characters, and he's one of the only ones that treats Max like an actual human being. While I was replaying this, I decided to really try and dig what I could find. There are optional photos you can take throughout the game that act as collectibles, which are neat. You can look at a lot of objects in the game and hear Max's inner monologues, complete with even more cringe dialogue, like this bit here about a plasma.
That is a tasty plasma. Maybe I could sneak in and watch Final Fantasy Spirits Within. I don't care what anybody says, that's one of the best sci-fi films ever made.
Damn. Square's really, really salty about how Spirits Within went down in the West, huh? There were a couple things I was surprised to find here. One is how many locations in the game there were that I like to call breathing spaces. I'm talking about moments where you can just lie down on your bed, pick up Max's guitar and play it, literally just sit down on a bench. There's a couple of moments at Chloe's house where she sits on a swing or the couch and reminisces about her childhood with Chloe. I knew that these were in the game, but I didn't really know how many there were, let alone that it clued you into optional dialogue I've never heard for this game. Years ago when I first played this, I wouldn't have really given a shit about this kind of thing. Now, I really like that these moments are here in the game, especially when it doesn't seem like there's a lot of moments in-game where you can sit down and collect your thoughts. It's a really pleasant way to slow down the pace a bit. This was also where I noticed there's a decent bit of optional side content I never knew about. Before Max meets up with Warren, she has to get this flash drive back for him at her dorm, right? But then this girl, Dana, borrowed it. You try to get it back from her, and there's this side quest of sorts where her friend Juliet locks her in her room. Also, real quick, can I just note, why does this dorm have lockable doors from the outside? Isn't this a huge safety risk? I don't know, maybe David was onto something about putting cameras on the campus. And their dorms too, and also in his own house. Okay, you know what, never mind. He wasn't onto anything. Anyways, after getting proof that Victoria fabricated shit to get the two of them to fight, you can now go in and get the drive from Dana. But while I was looking around, I saw this pregnancy test. Upon picking it up, because Max gets pretty fucking nosy in this game, Dana naturally gets upset and takes it back. But if you rewind time with this newfound information, you can confront her about it in a more meaningful way, which gets her to open up about having to go through an abortion.
I was pregnant. Was.
Oh. What about the other?
Deadbeat dad? You can catch him on the 40-yard line this Friday. And it's not Zachary.
This absolutely shocked me. In all my years of both praising and trashing on this game, I never knew that this existed. It doesn't serve the larger story in any way whatsoever. This is entirely optional. You don't have to experience this. And you know what? I actually really love that. Now, this isn't the most profound discovery on the planet I found here, but what I appreciate about it is that there are attempts to make Life is Strange's world feel more fleshed out. Like there's actual people here and the world doesn't revolve entirely around Max. It's far from perfect, especially since this doesn't affect anything on the narrative moving forward, but I can applaud the dev team for wanting to make Arcadia Bay feel like a living place. Again, not perfect, most people in this town suck ass, and it kind of irks me seeing this knowing the devs could have given more interactions like this with the actual main cast of characters. Just two people treating each other with respect like actual people, and they just decided not to. They certainly could have given something like that to Chloe. Oh yeah, let's finally start on that. Nathan confronts Max and picks a fight, Warren takes a beating for her, and who else other than her old best friend Chloe Price is there to save her? 5 years prior, Max and her family left Arcadia Bay for Seattle. Max only came back after getting a full ride scholarship to Blackwell, and in the month or so that she's been here, let alone the past 5 years, she hasn't spoken to Chloe. Now, I'm really going to try to hold my tongue as much as I can for now, because I really feel like Chloe deserves her own section of the video. Yes, there is truly that much to unpack with this character. But in context to this first episode, all of this mainly serves to set up Max and Chloe's prior relationship and it finally rekindling in this game. Chloe's been through a lot of shit. Her best friend left town and didn't talk to her. Her dad passed away around the same time. The game is littered with these missing person posters for a girl named Rachel Amber, who was a beloved student at Blackwell and Chloe's best friend in the 5 years during Max's absence. She apparently also has an awful stepdad who is...
What's going on in here?
Oh, of course it's this douchebag. So yeah. Needless to say, things aren't looking up. She's adopted a punk attitude that seems foreign to Max. She's justifiably upset that her best friend ghosted her for 5 years, and life's generally been shit. And you know what? In this episode specifically and how they deliver all of this, I can't really blame her. She has a right to be upset. But that seems to slowly go away when her and Max start to catch up. Especially so if you choose to back her up when David confronts her about,
Wait, is that grass?
Smoking that pack, am I right? It's also where we get this famous tidbit.
Bang!
Jesus, put that thing down.
Chillax, sister. It's not even loaded. Yet.
I thought you believed in gun control.
Yes, I believe I should control the gun. It's the men who need to be checked.
First of all, real classy. Second of all, I can't wait to see how all of this pays off. The episode ends with Max having a vision of that storm again, and it starts snowing while it's 80 degrees. Because of, as Max puts it, climate change. I mean, I think she's onto something, guys. So yeah, episode 1. has its issues, but it is a fine enough start. And it's got something kind of intriguing with Max's powers and her relationship with Chloe. Yeah, she was a little bitter at the beginning, but I'm sure they'll have a stronger dynamic as the game progresses, one where she can finally understand her best friend is still at least back in her life, and they can talk things through together like the friends they used to be. Maybe she'll get past that initial bitterness after her and Max start to catch up more and reconnect. And Max in turn can be there to support her friend, help her through her turmoil and her issues that she's had, and generally speaking have a game where two friends are looking out for each other in a positive way, with a bond that strengthens as they work together to get past their hardships. Right? Right? Right?
We were not sure that Square Enix, the publisher, would approve all the themes, the intense scenes we have and how we deal with them. And really early in the discussions, we were relieved to see that they didn't want to change anything. They just wanted to make sure that we deal properly with the scenes or themes, and this is exactly what were our intentions. So.
Ah, shit, they're playing copyrighted music in the intro. Let's see, I gotta add my own music here. Let's see. Cool and epic royalty-free music I can use on my YouTube video, lol. You know what? I'll take it. That works.
Big Mama, selling narcotica. How much do it cost, bitch? None-zip nada. Run from Policia, ain't no drama. Fresh new Adidas for the newborn stamina. Flow so pretty, I would turn around and fuck it.
But, okay. I can't really talk about it super in-depth because of that, but the soundtrack of this game is pretty alright. I like it. A lot of it consists of pretty good indie pop from artists like Local Natives, Foles, Brian Viglione of Violent Femmes fame, and even Alt-J.
We put some licensed tracks from artists we love. Sid Matters was one of them.
The game's score was composed by Jonathan Morali of the band Sid Matters, and while I can't recall specific tracks outside the game's main theme, it does a really good job of setting the laid-back and relaxed tone that Life is Strange often goes for. It's pretty easy on the ears. So the game. Life is Strange is ultimately a mystery with a tinge of sci-fi thrown into it. The entire first episode is littered with all of these missing posters of Rachel Amber, and after you learn more about her from Chloe, along with all the other shady stuff going on at Blackwell, from what happened to Kate to a lot of the adults acting constantly standoffish and dickish to you, you kind of start to get the feeling that something isn't right, and it probably all connects back to this Rachel girl. So what's episode 2 about? Gun control with Chloe Price.
Jesus, I shot myself! Back up! Gun!
Episode 2 of Life is Strange feels like a huge nothing burger. It isn't really until the very end that things finally start to progress as far as the main narrative goes. What we've got here is essentially Max and Chloe's catch-up session, and okay, you know what? Let me get into a few small things sprinkled throughout the episode that I did like. I once again really like all of these small extra side things they add throughout each episode. You can have a follow-up chat with Dana, you can get on the good side of Victoria's cronies by using your time powers, and you can convince Warren to blow himself up in class.
I actually think you should use a lot of potassium. I mean, a shitload.
Things I didn't like? The town continuing to be hostile towards you.
She's a weirdo with that dumb camera.
I hate that I'm so quirky crap.
What do you want? I feel like shit. Too much beer, so spare me, please. Just let me suffer quietly.
Pardon-moi, but you're in my eyesight. I don't care for your tone. You sound like Joyce.
How does Joyce sound?
Bossy and smartass. Like you.
It's very easy for you to instantly accuse people of doing terrible things. Nathan, Mr. Madsen, who's next?
Ciao, Max. No photos, please.
Just because you were nice to Victoria doesn't mean I have to be nice to you.
Do you see a pattern here, Max?
You know, I take back what I said about the setting. This place sucks ass, and I'm only 2 episodes in. But that's not what this episode is about. This is about Max catching up with Chloe to prove her time powers are real. This is about Chloe acting like a total bitch to Max when she gets a phone call from Kate.
So go ahead, chat up Kate Marsh from Blackwell.
Man, shut your bitch ass up.
This is about Chloe using Max to abuse her time powers so they can fuck around with David's gun. This is about Max getting caught up in the drug money Chloe owes, because this Frank guy is who Chloe owes money to, and he can either effortlessly take the gun away, or Max can shoot the guy in self-defense that's waving a knife around them. Also, side note, this is where I started to notice the cracks with the time travel powers in the story, but I'll save that for a little later. This is about getting more weird and cringe pieces of dialogue that sound bad, even in the context of Max being a total fucking dork.
She's a steampunk.
What does that even mean? No, seriously, I don't understand.
What does it mean?
This is about Max passing out from abusing her powers too much, and right after waking up, Chloe still insists on using her powers so the two of them can fuck around. As if she didn't just catch a nosebleed and fucking pass out. Chloe, you should probably take your boot off. No, Chloe, the boot, just slip it off.
I don't want to die here!
It doesn't even look like you're stuck, just the boot is stuck. Just take the boot off. Look, I know this is very tense, but like we still got a lot of time before the train comes, so you can take the boot off. Oh my god, we're saving her for her own section. There's not much else I can really say on this point because A, I'm saving Chloe for her own section of the video, and B, that's mostly all that happens in this episode. It's just Max and Chloe fucking around with their powers. And look, I can buy this happening. Young adults are stupid. But something about it feels that much worse watching Max clearly struggle physically to control her powers, and watching her so-called best friend continue to abuse that. Keep in mind too, they only just reunited less than 24 hours ago. I gotta shut up. I'm saving her for her own section. Damn it. There's one other significant thing that happens here that honestly I think is one of the best parts of the entire game. Let's backtrack to that whole thing going on with that character Kate. Basically, she had gotten blackout drunk during a party with the school's frats. She made out with a bunch of guys and did a lot of other suggestive things. Somebody filmed it, it goes viral, and now the whole school won't shut up about it. Throughout episode 1 and 2, you can choose to stand up for her in various ways. It can involve big choices like intervening to stop David from harassing her, telling her to go to the police when she suspects that Nathan drugged her, or little ones like wiping the link off the video of the bathroom mirror, or even coming across other students and suggesting they stop watching and sharing the video. All of this is really taking a toll on Kate. The girls are bullying her, her religious family has mostly disowned her. Generally speaking, Max is pretty much the only person that's there for her throughout the first 2 episodes. But she can also be as involved as the player lets Max. She could choose to take a picture to get evidence of David harassing Kate, or she could tell her to hold off on reporting to the police until she can get evidence. All that stuff with wiping away links or wiping away her dry erase board outside her room, all optional. And these choices have serious consequences for when this happens. Shocked and borderline paralyzed, Max forces her way up right before Kate jumps. And we get what I think is the most intense part of the game. Max's powers aren't working, which means there's no turning back. Whatever choices you make here will dictate whether Kate lives or dies for the rest of the game. And every single choice you've made up to this point will affect your conversation. If you say the wrong things, don't pay attention to small details of her life, or give the impression that you're really there for her, Kate will jump. But if you really took the time to explore all of your options with her, knew the right things to say to help her out, you can save her. You can prevent this tragedy from happening. For probably the first time in the game, your actions have real consequences. And with your powers taken from you, even for a moment, you can't rely on them anymore. All you have to rely on is your immediate quick thinking. The first time I played this section of the game in 2017, I failed to save Kate. And it really affected me. Throughout the rest of my playthrough of this game at that time, I just kept thinking of what I could have possibly said or done that could have prevented that, and what I could do moving forward in the game to ensure something like that wouldn't happen again. Which made it all the more satisfying this time around on second play, when I really took my time, explored all the options I had, and I actually managed to save her. It felt fulfilling. Not only was I being rewarded for actually paying attention to small details in the game, but I managed to save a character's life. No powers necessary. Shit, man, why couldn't the rest of the game's choices be like this? I'm jumping ahead, but let me get this out of the way right now. Life is Strange is marketed as a game where your choices have consequences and will affect the past, present, and future. Yeah, that's kinda bullshit. And without getting too ahead of myself, Life is Strange only has 2 endings, and none of the choices you make throughout the game actually play a role in that final choice. Now, to be fair to Life is Strange, this is not the only game that is guilty of this. Every single Telltale game did this exact same thing. I really think games like this mismarket how the whole player choice narrative in it works, because here's the thing. Making a game where your choices drastically affect a narrative in a huge way is really hard to make. Games like Until Dawn, where your choices affect the various types of endings you can get, or how characters can be killed off throughout the game, or games like Fallout New Vegas, where it feels like the role-playing possibilities are near endless with its story, you don't get a game like Baldur's Gate 3 every day, because coming up with that many possible scenarios and accounting for every single one is really fucking hard. What the choices in these kind of games actually do in reality is affect how you interact with the overall narrative. See, one of the reasons I love The Walking Dead isn't because it tells me that my choices will affect the story. It's because my choices affect how the world interacts with me and vice versa. Every time I play The Walking Dead, I know it's going to have the same narrative and the same ending. What makes me want to replay it is seeing how I can interact with that narrative differently. I can have an entire playthrough of it where Lee and Kenny are best friends and get along super well, or I can have an entire playthrough where they border on hating each other's guts. That's what draws me to these games, is knowing that while I can't affect the general story structure, I can affect how people act within that structure. I can choose to do nothing but help Kate like in this second playthrough, or I can have moments where I ignored it or missed it like I did in my first playthrough. How Kate interacted with me on the roof was drastically different on both playthroughs. That's what I want to see, and that's what I enjoy about these kind of games. And it's why this moment where you can save Kate or fail to save her is one of my favorite moments in this game, because it's the only part of the entire narrative that had any real, meaningful impact on me, and not in a bad way, a really good way. It isn't making me bawl my eyes out like The Walking Dead did, twice, but it still hooked me, and it was enough to make me want to keep playing back in 2017. God, if only I knew how much worse it would get.
One of the fans' favorite, and of course a character we really love, Chloe. She's one of the most important characters, because at the end the choice is about her. It was really important to create this character the best way possible, so the player would learn to care more and more about her. But we really wanted her to be not that nice at the beginning.
Be gay, do crimes. Literally. That's just this whole episode.
Don't you support gay rights?
Okay, so what did I like? I mean, I guess all that side content again. Episode 3 involves Max and Chloe breaking into the school to dig up more information on Rachel. They start by breaking into the principal's office by blowing it up with a pipe bomb.
This is so cool.
Oh, wait. They actually do that. It's not a joke? Yeah, that's fine. It's not like I wanted to make that joke myself or make some other video and make a video editing joke or whatever. Fuck! They took my fucking joke! Here they find more dirt on Nathan and some other freaky shit going down that points things to him and David. Okay. They find a handicapped fund that they can decide whether or not to steal for Chloe to pay Frank back. Okay. They break into the school's pool and dodge the cops. Okay. They make it back to Chloe's house, fuck around, and find out more dirt on David. Okay. You can choose to rip him a new one for everything he's done in context of the game up to this point. Okay. You go back to the diner to break into Frank's RV with the citizens before and during the segment continuing to prove that they're comically shitty people.
How's it going?
Peachy. Interview over.
Okay. You distract Frank's dog and to choose to fucking kill them. Jesus fucking Christ, game!
Oh, no! Please do not let that poor dog be hit.
I bet he's fine.
Okay. You find out Rachel had a relationship with Frank and didn't tell Chloe, and she gets pissed off. Okay. Max and Chloe have a heated conversation where...
Gotta blame somebody, otherwise it's all my fault. Fuck that.
God, what an absolute fucking... Okay. No, I gotta reel it in. We're giving her own section. We're giving her own section, god fucking damn it. Most of this episode just completely forgets about the world around it and starts hyper-focusing on a narrative, and I guess I wouldn't mind that if A, I wasn't stuck with this monstrosity of a character, and B, the game tried to take some space here to slow things down, and remember that there's still a world around Max they can work with. I mean, there is that moment you can talk to the principal, you get to see Victoria being a sleaze around Jefferson, Warren sends you some texts here and there, and Max tends to ignore him like the gamer she is. You can try to maintain a conversation with Nathan, and his reaction every time you talk to him again is honestly pretty funny.
Holy shit, what do you want now?
There doesn't really seem to be any balance here. It's either all focused in on the narrative or nothing at all, like in episode 2. Can't we just have an episode that's balanced between focusing on the narrative and focusing on the world around Max? There's two other major things I take issue with here. One is how Chloe fucking acts in this episode, especially in that truck drive. Look, I know I keep saying I'll talk about it in her own section over and over, and I'm sure that's annoying, but look, I promise, that will be worth the build-up. Second is the inconsistency with Max's time powers. I did neglect to talk about this earlier, so let's get into it now. When Max uses her powers, anything she picks up stays in her inventory while she travels. For example, in the first episode, when she moves a janitor cart and picks up a hammer to use to smash the alarm open, she will still have it after rewinding to buy some time. When Chloe gets stuck on the track, even though she didn't have to, saving her own section, shut up. Sack myself. Shut up! Shut up! When Chloe gets stuck on the track, Max can break into the station, pilfer all the items in it, and when she backs out, rewind time like it never happened, but keep everything she got from it. Now up to this point, I got the impression that this was for gameplay purposes only. You know, like, it wouldn't make sense for Max to carry all of this stuff in between rewinds for story reasons, but it would make puzzles more engaging. That gets thrown out the window here with two moments. When Max goes into Principal Wells' office and unlocks the door on the other side, and when she steals Frank's keys. Meaning this does, in fact, affect the real world. Why are some of these major choices in the game even choices at all then? If David was harassing Kate and you had the option to only take a photo or intervene, why couldn't Max do both? Why didn't she get evidence by taking a photo, rewind time, and then intervene? When Frank first confronts them, why doesn't Max take more initiative to make sure Frank doesn't find out there's a gun? Every time you go back and do this choice again, she always awkwardly and obviously hides it behind her. Why doesn't she rewind time further to avoid Frank altogether, or go back and make a more conceited effort to interrupt Chloe's rambling and go, hey, Frank's coming. No time to explain how I know that, let's get the hell out of here. I can only take two things from this. One, Max is selectively stupid about using her power despite the multitude of times she can do it in gameplay, and two, the writers and devs didn't really fully think about the implications of time travel in this game despite saying they did. Because when you don't, you get moments like this where you don't understand where the rules lie. What exactly is the extent of Max's power? Why is it selective about when it works fine and when it isn't? There needs to be rules around this sort of thing, otherwise it just doesn't make sense. I get that the devs, according to the dev commentary, took a lot of time establishing this for Max, and mistakes can happen. But this is a really big blemish to overlook, especially for something as complicated as time travel. Speaking of not making sense, Max can travel farther back in time now. All she has to do is just stare at a photo long enough and she's momentarily back there. Yep, no explanation given, Max just has this now. And she uses it to go back to the moment right before Chloe's dad died, and she might have actually been a likable character and stop him from getting into the car crash that would have spiraled Chloe's life. Max wakes up and she's in a completely different reality. One where she's apparently BFFs with Victoria, I guess she keeps bad company no matter what. Other small things like Warren hooking up with a totally unrelated side character and David being a bus driver. And the biggest one, Chloe's dad is now alive, but Chloe is fucking paralyzed now. Yeah, they just straight up crippled her. I guess that's what you get for fucking with your powers that you don't quite fully understand, and probably the game doesn't either. Ugh. The main narrative starts to take focus, but by the end of it, we're only incrementally closer to what exactly is going on here. And halfway into it, it's like they just forget about it for a while so they can keep putting the focus on blue hair and pronouns. Ha ha ha! You thought I'd go this whole video without making that joke. That's so funny, right? Fucking pronouns! Ha ha! And by the end of the episode, I'm just left wondering what the fuck is going on. And not in a good way.
We wanted to talk about this theme of euthanasia, but to find a way to talk about it that would be respectful for any sort of position. Because, yeah, it was really important to not try to say this is right, this is wrong, and to let the player really see how he wants to play this scene at this moment based on what he felt for the situations, for Chloe, for her parents and everything. And that was that was not easy to find this balance.
So, in case the game wasn't desperate enough to get us to like and sympathize with Chloe before, we're now in a completely alternate reality where Chloe is literally crippled. And besides suddenly establishing that Max can just, do this, I don't really see what the point of this whole sequence is. We get some moments with Max and Chloe's parents, but she gets most interactions with Chloe herself, who still grills Max about not seeing her, but man, they really hammer in the situation she's in. Every single thing you interact with in this part of the game serves to remind you how horrible this is.
Instead of handing Chloe a bong, I'm feeding her water. Chloe's message board since the accident sure looks lonely. At least I sent road trip selfies to Chloe. I'm sure that made her feel great. Still can't believe I put Chloe in that chair. Still a punk at heart. But she can't stage dive. This is just for Chloe's basic supplies. Her own home taken away because of medical drowning in debt. Just to take care of their daughter.
All it takes is a few minutes to change a girl's whole life.
I didn't realize how bad Chloe's injury really was. For putting Chloe and her family through. Never thought I'd be delivering morphine to my best friend.
Chloe's condition is not improving. Her respiratory system...
Yes, I get it. She's paralyzed now. But maybe this can fix some of my prior issues I've had with Chloe up to this point. We get to see a completely different side of her, and as difficult and convoluted as the situation is, maybe Max can find a healthy way to navigate, or we can just totally undo that shit while having this interaction with Chloe if you refuse to, kill her!
I want this time with you to be my last memory. All you have to do is crank up the IV to 11.
Chloe. I can't. It wrecks me to see you in any pain. But I don't have any right to do this. Can't kill you with an overdose.
You're just bailing on me, like everybody else. Why don't you go now? You've been wanting to since you got here, right? So go and don't come back.
Saving her for her own section. I'm saving her for her own section. I'm saving her for her own section. I'm saving her for her own section! Why is there even a choice here? It might be the most worthless one in the game. Max undoes all of this and lets her dad die anyways to put the timeline back in order. What is the point of having this illusion of a choice knowing Max is going to completely undo all of it? This is a pretty odd way to go about discussing a topic like this, in the game like Life is Strange no less. Is this game gaslighting me? Is it trying to fool me into believing this is a sympathetic character I should care about by shoving this tragedy this far down our throats like this? Oh fuck, did they gaslight me about Kate too? Oh god, I hope they didn't. The rest of the episode plays out with Max and Chloe trying to find the final pieces of their investigation. And to give the game some credit here, I do think they finally find that balance between, having Max interact with the world and actually advancing the narrative here. They find some of David's findings, but not before he throws Max a real self-pity party about self-destructing his own life. And Max promptly calls him out on it, probably tired of that shit, but, still taking it from Chloe, no problem. Shut up! It's getting its own section! The next two sections really hammer in the problem I mentioned earlier with Max's time power inconsistency. First up is when Max snoops in Nathan's room and gets his phone. He catches them before they leave, but Warren steps in and proceeds to beat the ever-living shit out of him, and you have a choice of either stopping him or letting him go all out. This was one of the choices in the game that was closest to 50-50, and I can understand why players would stop him, not stooping to his level and all that. But here's the thing, I've never fought anyone myself personally, but I would also personally like to hope that I would go apeshit like this on someone too, if they, pulled a fucking gun on me. Mind you too, this is like the 5th time in the story that Nathan just does this. But the time power thing. This whole situation could have been avoided if Max had simply rewound time enough to prevent this interaction from even happening. And I can't even use the she wouldn't have enough time to do it argument because of what I'll talk about next. This whole interaction could have been avoided if Max rewound far enough to at least tell Chloe, hey, Nate is coming, let's get the fuck out of here, as soon as they found his phone. Or, not walk up to Chloe having full view of this phone that she very clearly stole from Nathan's dorm. That probably would have been a smart decision too, if you're going to rewind time. I don't know if it would have stopped Nathan from going apeshit anyways, but at least he wouldn't suspect or know that they took his fucking phone. This next section, getting Frank's codebook to decipher his clients' names, also has its own problems. Chloe kills Frank and his dog as one of the main choices here.
You fucking killed my dog!
Oh my god!
And you know what? I'll give some grace to this scene here. This was the first time I got this result in the game myself, and I didn't realize Chloe actually does this in self-defense. Props to you, Chloe, you have one less reason for me to fucking hate your guts. Oh my god, I gotta shut up. She's getting her own section. But what followed this while I was playing was pretty ridiculous. Max acts pretty nonchalant about her friends literally murdering a man and his dog.
I know, but we can't stop now. We have to find that code. Fast.
Like, she doesn't hesitate to start pilfering his body for his drug client list they need. Like, wow. That's not wildly out of character whatsoever. Like, yeah, if you make certain decisions in this game, you can really make Max to be a total asshole too, but not this much of an asshole. This whole conversation with Frank is essentially supposed to be a puzzle. You select the right dialogue options, Frank will eventually give up his client list peacefully. But there's a lot of issues here. One, the options you are given are not exactly clear on what Max is gonna say, let alone her tone. So it's pretty frustrating when I get to what is the final option of this conversation. I pick the bracelet option, and Max starts getting hostile and accusatory towards Frank and needlessly escalates things. 2, I have to ask again, why is this even a choice at all? It's pretty clear that the game is nudging you towards having a peaceful talk with Frank, so why not just have every failure of that force a reset where you have to rewind instead of even given the option of killing or injuring Frank? Just set it up in a way so that the only way you can naturally get his codebook is if he's still alive. 3, this fucking rewind ability. This new thing I'm about to talk about has been a problem across the entire game, but it's at its absolute worst here, which is why I was saving it for now. When you have to solve puzzles like this in Life is Strange, you're obviously encouraged or forced to rewind in order to solve it. But every single time you start rewinding, it never rewinds you back to key conversation moments. You have to restart the entire conversation over again and start from the beginning. This can be pretty annoying when I just want to have some extra dialogue with other characters. Annoying, but you know, not the end of the world. But for this sequence here, I had to rewind the entire sequence of events over and over and over again. Why do this? Why can't we just rewind to the specific point of the conversation where things went wrong? The only reason I can think of in this episode in particular is padding, especially since this is the longest episode of the series so far. And finally, 4. Max can carry items with her through time. The first time I failed and killed Frank and his dog, yeah, shit sucks, but we get the client list and can still rewind that entire conversation. First of all, if she can rewind this entire conversation, what's her excuse for not rewinding farther back for other situations, like when Warren beats up Nathan, or when Frank is trying to steal Max and Chloe's gun? Second off, if things were consistent, Max could theoretically have had a situation where they end up killing Frank, getting the client list, and rewinding time before they even have a conversation with him, and could have potentially avoided confronting him altogether. Why is this a thing? Why does this exist? Why did they make it so selective about what Max can and can't take with her when she rewinds? Why does one of my takeaways from this only have to be that Max is stupid even though she's aware she can take shit from people without even confronting them? She did it just fine in the last episode with Frank's keys, why does she not do it with his list? Am I getting punked here? I feel like if this time travel bullshit was any more inconsistent, I'd be playing fucking Sonic 06.
Chaos control!
Either way, Max and Chloe gather up their clues, which leads them to this old farmhouse property owned by Nathan's family, and they find a fucked up house of horrors with this dark room hiding beneath it. They find binders of victims, including Kate's, indicating that Victoria is next, and what appears to be Rachel's dead body. Sure enough, Chloe and Max go to the spot in the junkyard pictured and they discover Rachel's remains. Now, with all the pieces together and the evidence known, they have something here. Finally, they can come forward to the police and authorities with what they discovered. There's probably going to be a lot of legal mumbo-jumbo they'll have to deal with for trespassing and whatnot, maybe even hire some lawyers, but ultimately, they now have undeniable proof that Nathan is at worst connected to this horrifying picture studio they found, as well as Rachel's murder. And by extension, and maybe by playing good cop and bad cop with someone as unstable as Nathan, the authorities could potentially discover other accomplices and overall finally put this nightmare to an end. Or they can just go straight to a frat party at Blackwell to confront Nathan themselves. You know, I can buy Chloe doing some astronomically dumb shit like this, regardless of if she found out Rachel died or not. But Max goes along with this and says she has Chloe's back.
I'm with you to the end, Chloe. You know that.
Maybe I was a bit too light on Max, because she can clearly think rationally about what she should be doing here, but she doesn't. Yeah, a huge chunk of that is probably because of Chloe's influence, and I promise we will get to that. But this is not suspicion anymore. You have an entire evidence board and even an entire secret bunker that proves someone is drugging and kidnapping women in Arcadia Bay and has at least one murder on their hands of a student who's been infamously missing for months. Why is Max stupid here? And oh, look at that. Now they've given Nathan a head start to go and destroy his evidence. Real genius move there. Almost as genius as going to the junkyard by yourselves. Good job, guys. Now Max gets drugged herself, Chloe gets shot dead, Max can't use her powers anymore, and now Nathan has the upper hand and is probably gonna... Wait, hold on, what the actual fuck?
Well, this has just been really fun for me, especially coming from the standpoint where, you know, when I auditioned for the role, I wasn't sure if Jefferson was gonna be the bad guy in this. So, you know, you just kind of came in and we would do our voiceover sessions, and he was just a cool teacher. So it was kind of neat to find out about this twist. I mean, I'd kind of heard that might happen, but I didn't know for sure if it would. So it was really, really fun to play with that.
Okay, let's talk about this before I really get into the episode. I'll give some actual praise to Life is Strange here. This actually surprised me the first time I played it, and as the episode plays out, it starts to give a lot of pretty subtle and not so subtle hints that this was always the case.
Seriously though, I could frame any one of you in a dark corner and capture you in a moment of desperation. Isn't that too easy? Too obvious?
Jefferson was the real culprit, the man behind the slaughter.
Purple guy!
I'll admit, I'm not always the brightest when it comes to twist reveals like this. I was probably part of the 1% that never noticed that line about pancakes in Persona 5. If you know, you know. So maybe call it a bad eye, but I kind of like how hidden in plain sight this twist was. For all the game's faults and its lack of attention to detail, especially with the time powers, they really did a decent job on this part of the game. My only real gripe is that, outside some core moments, I think the devs hid this twist a little too well. Yeah, some of it I personally probably should have picked up on sooner in my first playthrough, like, it's gotta mean something important if you can choose to blame Jefferson for Kate's situation on equal footing to Nathan and David. But there's other details across the game where you have to really dig, explore, and even jump to conclusions a little bit in order to get this idea. I also don't really like how this never really plays into Max and Chloe's investigation. Yeah, we find out the painfully obvious that Nathan was in on some of this, but until they discover the dark room, and it becomes obvious this is a bigger operation than Nathan's, there aren't many clues that even hint to the possibility of another involved party. I'm not really asking them to give us all the foreshadowing up front. I would just like if there was a bit more. But then again, I'm stupid when it comes to these kind of reveals, so what do I know? This episode fully leans into that traveling through photos thing they did prior. At first, it's mainly used to escape the dark room and eventually bust Jefferson by texting David at the beginning of the week in his class. But there are still some small things that bug me, like how if you warned Victoria about Nathan in the last episode and how she might be the next victim, she's in the dark room too and is eventually killed. But if you do nothing, or if she doesn't listen to you, she's perfectly safe. Fuck me for wanting to help her, I guess, and fuck you, game, for letting me believe that. This game as a whole really puts Max through the ringer for simply wanting to do the right thing, but we'll touch on that in a bit. A couple time-traveling puzzles and an Inception reference later, everything seems to be in order. Jefferson and Nathan are arrested, Max submits her photo this time, and she wins the Everyday Heroes competition and a trip to its exhibit in San Francisco.
Oh my god! Oh my god, he's gonna say it! Ah. Oh my god, he's gonna say it!
Say what?
Life is weird.
Sorry, what now?
She has a talk with Principal Wells, who expresses regret about his actions in the previous episodes, especially in regards to letting Nathan off easy and everything involving Kate.
Should have put my foot down with Nathan Prescott. Or put my foot in his ass.
Sure would have loved to have that kind of sympathy earlier than the literal last time we ever see him game. But big shock, Max didn't solve everything, because it turns out Max's storm visions were real and they're tearing apart Arcadia Bay. Max goes back in time to stop herself from entering the contest, and ends up back in her regular timeline trapped by Jefferson again. And before Jefferson can kill her, David manages to track him down, and one time puzzle later, Max is freed and David apprehends Jefferson. You can have a conversation with him where he expresses guilt and regret for his actions and how he's handled himself in past episodes too.
I'm not gonna make any excuses for my behavior. I tried to be a good soldier, but I wasn't so great.
Sure would have loved to have that kind of sympathy earlier than the literal last time we ever see him, game.
I try not to use my service as an excuse, but it's hard to come home after war.
Max can also choose to tell him whether or not Chloe was killed, and drives off to find Warren so she can use her photo to go back in time and stop Chloe from getting shot with the info she has now. She listens to a missed phone call from Nathan apologizing to Max and attempting to warn her about Jefferson.
I didn't want to hurt Kate or Rachel or I didn't want to hurt anybody. Everybody used me. Mr. Jefferson is coming for me now.
Sure would have loved to have that kind of sympathy earlier than last time we ever hear from him, game. Max makes her way to the diner and saves a handful of people along the way, where she meets with Warren, Joyce, and Frank. You can talk to Joyce one last time and even discuss her falling out with David and whether or not she should stay with him. You can talk to Frank about Rachel and he'll start to finally show a softer side of him, thanking Max for what she's done and that maybe there's still some hope for him yet.
You know, the one time I met my dad, the bastard quoted the Bible and said he wanted to enter his house justified. In other words, to do the right thing. Me too. And maybe you're helping me get there, Max.
Sure would have loved to have that kind of sympathy earlier than the literal last time. Okay, can we talk about this for a second? This entire game, there have been several, and I mean several characters who have shown constant hostility towards Max regardless of her actions. Principal Wells and how he treats Max after accusing Nathan, or not doing that. David constantly being an uptight ass towards Max and Chloe the entire game. Frank also being an uptight ass towards Max and Chloe the entire game. Nathan being an actual fucking psychopath. And you know what's really fucking annoying? This is all actually kind of good. There's no cringe dialogue, nothing like that. This is some genuinely great stuff. There's so many characters that have a real heart-to-heart with Max about who they are, expressing some remorse for their actions, contemplating the kind of people that they were and acted towards Max. Why wasn't this sprinkled throughout the entire series? Why is it saved for the literal last episode in an effort to make me feel for any of these characters? Let's look at David as an example. He spends the entire game being a douche to you. He slaps his stepdaughter, he harasses students at Blackwell. His paranoia and personality are ultimately what lead to him getting kicked out by Joyce, and he still has the nerve to blame Max for it. So why in this last moment should I care about all of that being done for a good cause, or that it had any well-meaning and no ill intention in the literal last episode of your 10+ hour episodic series? I'm obviously thankful he saved Max. Good to know he isn't comically over-the-top asshole material like some other characters are in this game. But this moment comes too little too late. I can only recall one moment in between where Max and David have a conversation where he acts more in a gray area, but that's it. If one of this game's goals was to have you sympathize with even the asshole characters, I don't think they do a good job of that when the game spends 4 full episodes having these characters use Max as their emotional punching bag, and then give me what ultimately amounts to a sob story to try and make their actions understandable. Max meets with Warren one last time and uses the photo to go back and tell Chloe everything. You can even choose to tell her about that whole ordeal with her dad. What makes this notable for me is that she directly tells Chloe that once this moment fades away, she won't remember everything.
So listen, in a few minutes, I won't know any of this happened. Nothing. You'll have to tell me exactly what I did and said just now. Just explain that I traveled through time using the photo.
Okay, let's break this aspect of Max's time travel powers down real quick. Every time Max goes back in time like this, her present self goes back to the past. Her present self then does these actions in the past, and when she has to return to the present, her past self comes back to the state of mind, and things play out for her like nothing happened. Maybe as if she blacked out or something. Things play out with past Max being unaware of all of this, until when past Max catches up with the moment present Max returns to the present. Where was this level of thought for her time travel powers in-game? Why are there still so many holes in regards to Max using her powers in real time? If Max is truly smart enough to recognize this will happen every time she travels backwards by photo, then where are those smarts when she's using her basic rewind power? It makes things more inconsistent than they already were. I'd rather have Max either fully get this or not be bright with her powers as opposed to being selectively stupid about them. In summary, if Max uses her powers in real time, she retains all of her memories past, present, and future. But if she travels back using snippets of photos, she can only retain what her present self knows, nothing else. But also, her powers in the current time aren't consistent because they're selective about the items Max can and can't take with her. Max is smart enough to understand that she can travel back and only keep her present memories with a snippet of time, but she's dumb enough to not realize key situations she can travel backwards from to completely avoid certain decisions and interactions from even happening. Also, she's able to go back in time within going back in time. She does this once, and it's never brought up again. Also, it randomly stops working without explanation when trying to save Kate. And this is never brought up again. Hold on. I just realized something. Max submitted her photo earlier for the Everyday Heroes contest. One of the things she did when she went to the bathroom was rip it in half. And this is the only way she notices the butterfly to take the photo, implying she was going to use that photo instead. This is the only reason she goes around the corner, and the only way she hides and is able to save Chloe. How does this interaction still happen then? Doesn't the game imply that ripping her old photo causes her to notice this butterfly and take this new picture? So if she isn't there in that same context, how does she still save Chloe in the new timeline she creates? And don't tell me that this isn't that important. The game has been telling me to pay attention to small details like this the entire game. That's exactly what I'm doing. This game hammers the butterfly effect in your head. Of course, that's what my brain is immediately going to think of. And if that's the case, then what exactly happens in the rest of that timeline? It can't be the investigation Max and Chloe pull off. She already snitched to David. There's nothing to investigate anymore. If you look through Max's phone in this part, you can see that there are events that are different, which implies this timeline things happened entirely differently, but then there are events that are still implied to play out the same as the original one. Which one is it? Furthermore, Max goes back again to shred her Everyday Heroes photo even further back than the bathroom, so now the timeline is back to what it was, only this time in this new timeline, Max destroyed her photo earlier, which still doesn't explain the hole in what causes Max to notice the butterfly that started the whole chain reaction. But then Jefferson burns her diary and she can't travel back further. Question: how does Jefferson even know she ripped her photo? He didn't know that when it was ripped in the bathroom. He sure as hell shouldn't know when Max ripped it in her own room unless, I don't know, Max held onto the ripped photo in her diary for some reason? The game obviously wants you to pick up on small details throughout. So small that the game requires you to remember the passcode to the darkroom door from Nathan's room prior if you happen to find it. Otherwise, you gotta brute force guess it or look up a guide online. Side note, that whole quote-unquote puzzle fucking sucked. Did they not think people would pick up on this too if they wanted players to dig for details? Also, if Max only retains her present memories for that one moment in time she travels to, what did past Max do in the moments after present Max ripped the photo earlier than before? Does she just take another photo and things play out the exact same way? Does she leave it ripped there so it can't be ripped later and not start the butterfly effect that leads to her saving Chloe? Oh my god, I can barely speak now, dude.
Time travel!
Can you guys see why this hurts my head? This is why time travel is so hard to pull off. If you don't keep things fully consistent, explainable, and most importantly, simple, then you start asking questions you shouldn't need to ask. Look, Back to the Future got this right in 1985. You gotta keep this easy and simple.
What?
You thought Double Exposure was a good game?
Yeah, I did, and I would play it again.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I don't even know what timeline we're in anymore. Poor Max clearly doesn't anymore because after this, she passes out and time completely starts falling apart around her. Yeah, we get this really trippy sequence that is part puzzle and part bad stealth game, as Max tries to come to terms with what her powers have done. This seems like it was supposed to be the big aha moment. This is where all your choices up to this point would culminate as Max really fully grasps what her powers have done to the world around her. Powers she never asked for, I'll remind you, and still aren't explained how she got them. This could have been a cool moment in the game, to really show and explain to you the extent you've been using Max's powers and how they've affected the people around her. Instead, what we get is an unapologetic guilt-tripping against Max for, once again, just trying to be the only nice person in the whole fucking game. There are multiple sequences where characters rub in Max's face of how awful of a person she is, making generalized statements and assumptions about Max's interactions and why she did them. She has an argument with herself, her literal self, that's so heavy-handed and directly in your face about the game's themes of loss, destruction, the choices we make. Any more fucking heavy-handed, I would have thought I was playing The Last of Us 2. There's a couple particular moments here that really peeve me off. One of these is where Max's other self starts scolding her if David shot Jefferson during your earlier decision to tell him about Chloe's fate in that timeline. She straight up starts calling Max a fucking murderer for what she did.
You're way more of a cold-blooded killer than him or Nathan.
I'm sorry, for what she did? Last I checked, Max wasn't the one that pulled the fucking trigger. And even if she did, she was, I don't know, fucking drugged, forced to take these pictures to indulge Jefferson's perverted fantasy, and would have quite literally been killed herself if David hadn't happened to keep going and found her. Look, I've been saying that kind of thing a lot. I'm not advocating for murder or anything like that, but in what world would I blame Max for making that drastic of a decision after experiencing that? And again, I'm tweaking over a hypothetical here. Let me remind you again, David is the one that shot him. Why are we trying to pin the blame on Max? Because she let that decision play out? The dialogue here doesn't even allude to the fact that she could have reversed it, it's just making assumptions that Max wanted it to happen and liked it. But you know something that annoyed me the most? There's this moment where they do this regarding what happens to Kate, and they start talking you down and mentally bashing you for saving Kate from jumping off of a roof! I understand this kind of thing playing out if you fail to save Kate. This happened the first time I played it. But is this game really trying to convince me that maybe, just maybe, I made the wrong decision by helping and saving a victim of fucking suicide? At what point should I as a player feel bad about managing to save Kate? And at the end of this, Chloe comes in to basically talk some sense into Max, and we get this unapologetic session of the game, putting Chloe front and center, and remembering all the great and fun times we've had with her across the game. That's what really matters, right? Not just a half-baked attempt to cover Max's insecurities against people she has shown very clearly in this game to not have insecurities with. It's so Max can reflect and remind herself that Chloe is worth enduring it all, even though her literal self called her relationship with her Stockholm Syndrome. I get it, people can be insecure, even around the ones that very clearly care about them. But this does not leave the impact it's supposed to. This should have been a moment for Max to understand what her time powers have caused on other people. Let's take Dana, for example, since I completely missed her side content the first time I played this game. When you first discover her pregnancy test, you can rewind time so that you can confront her directly about this instead of snooping in her stuff. And this affects all of your interactions with her from this point forward. Imagine if Max's other self brought this up and told you about how emotionally manipulative that was. To find that personal information, rewind time, and then use it to have a closer relationship with her in the game, that would have been really effective. Confronting the player with that question directly about whether or not Max was doing the right things whenever she used her powers, and by extension, whether you are doing the right things whenever you used her powers. Was it right for her to use it to get on the Vortex Club's VIP list? Was it right for her to use it to steal Frank's keys? Was it right to use it to find out about Taylor's mom having medical issues? Was it right to use it all those irresponsible times Chloe essentially used it as her plaything? Well, okay, I don't think that's entirely Max's fault, but I'll save that for Chloe's section. I promise it'll be worth it. This part of the game should have been about the things Max had full control over, the things she didn't need to snoop on, the things she didn't need to know or do, but did anyways because of her power. It should not have been about insecurities she doesn't have control over, like what David ultimately does with Jefferson, and it certainly shouldn't have been used as a way to guilt a player into thinking that stopping Kate was the wrong answer, especially when she did all of that without her powers. I gotta add this last minute bit to this part of the video because I did kind of gloss over this. There is one part of this whole section here where they actually do kind of address this. And it's this part here, you know, where Max is going like, oh, you wanted to tell people what they wanted to hear, so you went back in time because you wanted to be popular. That's like the only time they actually do something like this here. And it still falls flat. I don't understand why this section couldn't just try to present this stuff naturally to you instead of making assumptions about what the player is trying to do. Like, oh, you wanted to do all this because you wanted to be popular. No, I wanted to do it because I wanted to play the fucking game. How's that for a fucking hot voice crack? I'm sure the ladies love that. I know it's gotta be like really annoying for me to constantly bring up The Walking Dead, but It's the gold standard for a reason. So in The Walking Dead, when you get confronted with the stranger, you actually have an option to respond how you want to respond. It's not making generalized assumptions and then you just respond to that. No, you actually get to respond yourself. There's a bit here where the stranger brings up bringing Clementine to a place as dangerous as Crawford. You could admit, yeah, I fucked up, but you could also play devil's advocate and be like, I couldn't leave Clementine by herself. And like, I really want to emphasize that too. Like, don't even consider the fact that, you know, I think Walking Dead just has better choices altogether because there's actual fucking moral ambiguity to all of it. But the fact of the matter is, it lets you respond how you would want to respond. It doesn't make this generalized assumption about you and then you respond to it. No, you actually have a conversation, or what feels like a conversation in The Walking Dead. Life is Strange doesn't do that. Instead, it just makes these generalized assumptions about Max, and that's what you have to respond to. No. I wasn't doing all those choices going back in time and getting dialogue options. I wasn't doing that for gameplay reasons or because I wanted to see everything the game had to offer. No, I was only doing it because I wanted to be popular. And you know the really, really rich part is the fact that this dialogue only appears if you actually did that enough. Like, you know, rewind time and like got new dialogue options enough times. You could potentially go through this entire game, never really do any of that, and this dialogue is never brought up. Why? Why should that kind of dialogue be limited to specific decisions you made instead of, I don't know, all of them? If I have to make an effort to get good dialogue like that in this moment, if it does exist, then I'm sorry, you failed to deliver the points. It's either all here or none of it's here. You don't get to pick and choose. So finally, Max comes to. She and Chloe have one last conversation on the lighthouse, where they start to realize that this all comes back to that moment Chloe gets shot. And you're presented with one final choice. Do you go back in time to let Chloe get shot and killed, or do you stick to the present and let Arcadia Bay get destroyed so you and Chloe can be together? That's right. All of these choices, all of these actions, all of these consequences, none of it matters. You get two endings. That's it. So as a player back then and as a player now, I start wondering a couple of things. Like, you know, is it right to sacrifice an entire city for the person you love? Do you sacrifice the person you love so that an entire city can go about their lives? No choice is selfish, but no choice is selfless either. I killed Chloe in both playthroughs. I'm not going to give this choice that much grace. Although it did surprise me as well as concern me seeing just how many people were willing to sacrifice an entire city for one absolutely reprehensible excuse of a fictional character. I swear to God that rant's going to be worth the wait. Like I said earlier, I'm not against this happening inherently, but this game should not have been marketed with the notion that your choices would matter in a grand story sense. Because as I said with The Walking Dead earlier, it can work, but in that game's case, the final decision doesn't undo everything you previously did, figuratively or literally. I guess this is going to go into spoiler territory for Telltale's The Walking Dead, so spoilers I guess. In The Walking Dead, as I talked about before, all of your choices affect how Lee interacted with the world around him, as opposed to affecting the narrative itself. What made each playthrough of that game unique was how you chose to interact with Kenny, with Lily, with Carly, with Ben, with everyone. But most importantly, with Clementine. What you did in that game would affect how Clementine chooses to brave this new world full of zombies and death around every corner. And by the end of the game, when Lee gets bitten and you're put to that awful choice of whether or not to leave him or have Clementine shoot him so he doesn't become a walker, it's not like what you did beforehand had no point to it. Because the entire game, if you're not directly showing Clementine how to survive in this new world, you as a player are constantly asking yourself, even when she's not there, what kind of example do I want to set for Clementine? What do I have to do in order to teach her how to survive a cruel world, but also to not lose herself or who she is in the process? That's a difficult thing to think about, especially when the game presents you with so many choices you have to consider on a whim. This is the same case with the final season of this series, where it mimics the same ideas with Clementine and the kid that she now looks over, AJ. I could make clips about how Life is Strange has less endings in a choice-driven game than something like Fallout, or Until Dawn, or Shadow the Hedgehog, but I'm not going to make any more clips besides that, because it would be hypocritical of me to do that when I love a game like The Walking Dead so much for the reasons I just listed. The problem here is that unlike Walking Dead, where your choices still leave an impact on the world that follows the ending, Life is Strange does not. One ending undoes everything you've done up to this point so that none of your choices even happened, and the other makes it so that none of your choices will leave an impact in the world following, because Arcadia Bay is destroyed, and everybody except Max and Chloe died. This is why I hate that Life is Strange ends this way. It doesn't leave any sizable impact on the world that you leave behind. Nothing changes. Life is Strange ends on such a whimper because both final choices presented to you leave you feeling like you didn't really accomplish or change anything. If you save Chloe, your choices don't matter because no one else is alive to deal with the weight of your decisions, and if you save Arcadia Bay, they didn't even happen at all. Things seem to kind of work out for the better in that scenario where Chloe dies too, since Jefferson is still arrested after Nathan kills Chloe. Things are generally better for everybody except for Chloe, obviously, in a funeral scene that drags out really, really long. Like, man, they really wanted so badly for you to feel bad about her as a character. There's even characters that show up that didn't even know her. Like, why is Kate here? Why did Warren show up? Why can I catch a glimpse of Victoria of all people at this funeral? None of these people have a connection to Chloe. Did they really pull out the entire cast for this? To really hammer in how bad you should feel about Chloe? No, I'm shutting up. I'm saving her for her own section. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. We're basically done with episode 5.
It's a really intimate story, and it's mostly just centered on just emotional moments. All of the major choices that you make in the game are emotional. The heart of it is the relationship between Max and Chloe. It gets really dark, and things get really hard for Chloe and really emotional.
Alright, no more delaying the inevitable. No more stalling. If you couldn't tell, I hate Chloe Price.
You got hella cash.
I really, really, really hate Chloe Price. Probably way more than I should, considering she's, you know, only a fictional character in a game that I don't even really like that much. But I don't think I have ever in my entire life despised a fictional character as much as I have Chloe Price in Life is Strange. This is the part where I cross my arms and do the whole YouTuber thing where I go, where do I even start with this? Well, I guess I can start with one thing. I'll give her voice actress some recognition. Ashley Birch does a fantastic job in her performance as Chloe. It's probably the best performance in the entire game. You know, save for the dialogue, but that's not really on her.
I really wanted to sell the moments, and I was putting, you know, pressure on myself to make, you know, certain moments, like with Rachel, lots of the moments that happen in episode 4, I really wanted them to feel real.
Writing a character and performing a character are wildly different things. I think it's entirely possible to have terrible characters with great performances. And I think with what she was given, Ashley did her best. With the work that she's done before and after this game, it really shouldn't come as a surprise that Ashley is this talented. She put in a lot of genuine effort and real passion in this performance, and I respect the hell out of that. And to the character's credit, I do think now, after replaying this game, there is a lot of context taken out when it comes to her. Like when she shoots Frank and his dog. I was always under the assumption from other videos, essays, and even memes that this was intentional. Like she just did this in cold blood. But replaying the game myself and getting this result, it's actually justified. Frank attacks her and Max. She only acts in self-defense. I can acknowledge that some of the hate that is put on her is a bit unfair. There are definitely people out there who dislike her for disingenuous reasons. Again, the whole fucking blue hair and pronouns joke. But that doesn't mean I'm not gonna tear into everything else that she does in this game. Let's start off with the small things. Hella. A lot of Chloe's dialogue as a whole in this game is bad. Remember when I said that a lot of teenage dialogue in this sounds like a bunch of middle-aged CEOs wrote it? Yeah, Chloe kinda gets the worst of that. The microaggression. She has bigger blowouts that I will get to, but there's so many moments in this game where Chloe acts incredibly condescending towards Max, and it often comes out of nowhere. She gives Max shit for not intervening when David hits her. She blows up at Max for taking literal seconds to call Kate back. And you know what? It doesn't even matter if Kate is suffering with her own shit at this point in the game. In what world is this not an extreme overreaction to taking a goddamn phone call? There is one moment in a later episode where Chloe out of nowhere gives Max shit for not stealing the handicap fund out of the principal's desk. It's like the game wants to constantly remind you every single time you choose not to side with her, especially when it involves, you know, actual fucking crime. Speaking of that, the crime. Yeah, she doesn't come close to doing the shit Nathan and Jefferson do, obviously. But she still does shit. I get this for certain points in the game where Max and Chloe have to kinda take matters into their own hands. But why'd they treat her other questionable actions like it's some fun trait? It's not a quirky thing that she steals one of David's guns and fools around with it. As funny as it admittedly is. That never gets old. The developers. They really want you to like Chloe, and that makes sense. She's the secondary protagonist. But their way of making you like and sympathize with Chloe isn't through her as a character. It's in the overabundance of extra supplementary material that they throw at you in every episode. You'll be bombarded with things she did while Max was gone. You'll find evidence of how bad of a person and student she became after Max left. In the alternate reality, you'll find a ton of material about how hopeless, paralyzed Chloe's future is. And yeah, let's emphasize that again. They fucking paralyzed Chloe in an alternate reality. No subtlety there. The final episode forces you down memory lane with all the great memories Max and Chloe had, sometimes completely ignoring how Chloe blows up Max right before or after. And this is just scratching the surface, because when I say there's an overabundance, I mean this game never stops finding things to throw at you to try and empathize with her. I know you gotta put this kind of supplementary material in this kind of game for characters, but they just really overblow it with Chloe. Dude, I'm not even joking, like, I was just, like, at this point, I was, like, half expecting Chloe to just flat out fucking deck Max in the face, and immediately after the game was trying to make me feel empathy or sympathy for her, because, I don't know, her fucking dog died 5 years ago, same time as William and when Max left, and then when Rachel disappeared. Let's get into, like, the big things she does in this game. And this starts in episode 1. Chloe acts genuinely condescending to Max. And at first, like I said before, it's justified. Ghosting a friend for 5 years will irk anybody, but this never leaves Max. She is constantly reminded in some way or another of this, and in my very first playthrough, I felt a certain kind of way about this, but I was also curious to see how this would evolve them further. Big shocker, it doesn't. Chloe treats Max like absolute dog shit for most of this game, and this happens in a few key parts. First up, the junkyard. Chloe consistently uses Max early on to have fun and fuck around with a power that even Max knows she shouldn't fuck with, but she does it anyways. It even reaches the point where she gets a nosebleed and completely blacks out, and when she wakes up, all Chloe wants to do is keep fucking around with it. Look, I'm not Max, but best friend or regular friend, not even considering time power shit, in what world would this make her a good friend? Imagine if you woke up and instead of making sure you were okay, your friend just insists you keep doing what you two are doing as if nothing ever happened. Like, oh yeah, that whole thing with you fainting, like, no, not that didn't happen. Let's get right back to what we were doing before. Like, no, obviously I can't speak for everyone. As far as I'm personally concerned, I wouldn't want to hang out with someone like that. You shut that shit down for the time being until your friend recovers. That's what, you know, a good friend would do, not immediately hand a fucking gun off to you to play with after you just fainted. Second, the truck argument. You've probably seen this before as a prime reason why people don't like Chloe. It's probably one of the more infamous parts of the game. The entire time, Chloe gives Max an emotional beatdown over every single problem she has bottled up over the past 5 years, and we get this infamous piece of dialogue.
Chloe, you can't keep blaming me and everybody for everything wrong in your life.
Gotta blame somebody, otherwise it's all my fault. Fuck that.
Yes, Chloe, it is your fault. You were the one who chose to go off the rails for 5 years. You were the one who chose to treat Max and everyone else around you like shit. You were the one who chose to make all of these bad decisions. They want so badly to make her a tortured soul, a character that has been through so much hardship of no fault of her own, and instead it comes across like a middle schooler talking about how much life sucks on Facebook, and when other people offer to help, they tell them to leave them alone.
Don't ask why!
But as bad as that is, that wasn't my breaking point in this part. What was is what she says about Kate.
Grow up! God, you're not the only one in Arcadia Bay with problems. Kate Marsh almost
killed herself. Such sad, okay? That doesn't make me feel any better about my fucked up life. Get it?
Hello? Her friend almost took her own life? This should be a deal breaker in any friendship, let alone your best friend. Could you imagine being told something this absolutely heartless if you knew someone was going through this? This hit extra bad in my first playthrough because remember what I said? I failed to save Kate when I first played this in 2017. Kate was dead in my first run. And she talks like this about Kate? God, tell me how you really fucking feel, you heartless bastard. I take it back. This game wasn't gaslighting me about Kate. She's awesome. I'll defend her to my dying breath, on God. Her side story isn't perfect either, but at least it has sincerity. And what do we get after this entire sequence? Chloe's half-assed apology text to her that you can find optionally that basically equates to, yeah, my bad, B. a fucking apology text. Like, not even a direct face-to-face apology or conversation about what happened or anything like that. No, it's just a fucking text, dude. Third, the party. I emphasize again, so much could have been avoided if Max and Chloe just went straight to the authorities. They even confirmed that would have been the case if Chloe wasn't such a loose cannon. I know, she just discovered her best friend died. She is going through it right now. But as Max's time travel charades in episode 5 show, she would still be rational enough to cool off and let the proper authorities handle things. But she doesn't. Instead, she drags Max into a dangerous situation, gets herself killed, and almost gets Max killed. What better way to make a character likable than to have them go on a rampage that would have killed their best friend had they not developed powers of any kind, let alone themselves? It's only by Max going back in time and throwing Chloe her own pity party does Chloe finally decide to back off and listen to her. Every other time, it's Chloe ranting about how much her life sucks, and Max reaffirming, yeah, you've been through more hell than Jesus Christ, but I'll be there for you. And the game treats this like it's normal. This is not normal. This is toxic. Max's other self literally calls it what it is. It's Stockholm Syndrome. Max feels constant guilt across the entire game for how she goes to Chloe, and instead of rectifying that in a healthy way, Max sticks around despite the several red flags she even acknowledges, because to Max, leaving Chloe would mean she's a bad person. And she can't be. Max and Chloe are best friends, right? Max finds it in herself that she has to protect Chloe, that she always has to have her back. She has to be this beacon of light to make Chloe a better person. And it comes at the cost of Chloe constantly berating her, putting down how she feels, acting microaggressive, acting actually aggressive, forcing Max into situations she otherwise wouldn't find herself in, using her as a means of entertainment when she discovers Max's power, and all the while keeping up this guise like she cares about Max, and I'm sure some part of her truly does. But it's hard to feel that when she blames Max for problems she had no control over, and all we get is this shitty my bad text. And like with everyone else in episode 5, they try so desperately to make you feel any kind of empathy for her, and yes game, I do feel empathy for people whose lives are not going well. What I don't empathize with is people whose lives are not going well and use that as a tool to exploit, harass, and demean everyone around them. And while we're on the subject, let me interject with this too. The alternate paralyzed world. I already talked about how manipulative the game gets at hammering in how hopeless her situation is there, but then we get to that choice before you leave it, deciding whether to put Chloe to sleep or let her live. Now, think about this in context to this timeline. This Chloe also hasn't seen Max in 5 years, and just after one day together, she puts this absolutely life-altering decision in her hands and gets absolutely pissed off like our Chloe does if Max, and by extension the player, doesn't want to be involved with such a decision. Can you imagine visiting an old friend and being presented with something like that? Like, I get she's in a bad situation, but how fucked up is it to put your life in a person's hands like that out of absolutely nowhere? And then get upset with them if they can't follow through with it. This isn't getting pissy with someone because they didn't contact you for 5 years. This is getting pissy with someone because they don't want the responsibility of killing you. How would you honestly react if you were confronted with something like that in any situation? That is such an astronomically delicate topic to suddenly bring up and expect we should have an immediate answer to it.
Oh man, dude, I could be here all day talking about this character. Like something I didn't even bring up that I was probably going to try to bring up in some capacity was, in the first episode, there actually is a chance where you can actually fail hiding and David catches Chloe and Max. In this part of the game, it kind of still plays out the same way. You know, David still catches Chloe smoking weed and all that. What shocked me was the fact that since Max is already out there, Chloe openly blames Max so she doesn't get in trouble with David.
It's not my pot. It's from Max.
And if Max, you know, doesn't take the fall for that, this happens.
I'm sorry, Chloe. I didn't know what to do.
Whatever. Everybody bails on me. Even my best friend Max. Don't you? So done with everybody in this town. I wish I hadn't even seen you, as if you care. Color me out of here.
Yeah, because, you know, nothing says best friendship like fucking blaming your friend for something you did and then getting pissy when they don't take the fucking heat for it. There's moments like this across the entire fucking game. I could honestly be here all day talking about this. Okay, I gotta get into why this is so personal for me, because, I mean, obviously at the end of the day, it's a fictional character, you know? It's not the biggest freaking deal in the world. We can't control the emotional response we have to different works of art, different works of fiction, all of that. And I know for a lot of people, Chloe was like this beacon of light for them. You know, it was a character where they finally felt seen, had a big impact on them. I know Chloe being bisexual is a very, very big part of that, and a very big part of why this game as a whole meant a lot to so much people. And like I said at the beginning of the video, I can't take that away from you. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Like, that's your experience. No one should have to say that was false, that wasn't a true experience, that's not something you should feel. Don't let anyone take that from you. Let me play devil's advocate, though, and tell you what my experience was. Because back when I first played this game, I had a lot of these same feelings that I do have now, and kept thinking, you know, why is Max staying in this relationship with Chloe? Why is Max still hanging out with her? Why does she have this feeling like she needs to save someone who clearly does not want to be saved? And at the time that it came out, I started thinking a lot about my own friendships at the time and the people that I spent my time around with leading up to when I played it. And it made me suddenly realize just how many people in my life I considered friends or even best friends that treated me the exact same way that Chloe does in this game to Max. Now, without getting super duper personal here, I was not the most popular person in school, and it was very easy for kids to pick on me specifically. So when I was a kid, whenever I would make like real friends, it meant a lot more to me back then. But looking back on that now, there's, how do I put this? This game kind of made me realize that I had some of them, not all of them, but some of my friends I had this exact same relationship with, you know? I had friends that would treat me like an emotional punching bag of their own. So-called best friends that would shit talk me behind my back, encouraging me to do shit that I would never in a million years do on my own time or in my own volition. And then also going into middle school and high school, like, this didn't really happen as much, because I think by this point, you know, we're out of elementary school, that shit doesn't really matter as much. But I ended up surrounding myself with some friends, again, some of them, not all of them, but some of them that kind of exuded this same, what's the word I'm looking for, the same tortured soul kind of feeling that Chloe exudes in this game. And a lot of it was usually situations that these friends of mine would get themselves into, you know? Like, I would obviously feel bad for like whatever their life circumstances were, but a lot of like the self-destructive nature of their personalities was ultimately what got them in the place that they were. Just generally speaking, like acting very tragic about their life circumstances, but also kind of being part of the reason why their life circumstances were that way. And I kept having this feeling that, like, you know, I'm their friend, I have to be there for them no matter what. And while obviously that's something you should do if you're friends with someone, that's also not the only way you have to look out for someone in a relationship or a friendship or any kind of relationship you have with someone. Like, obviously, I'm not trying to say, oh, don't do this whatsoever. It's important to be there for the people that you care about, but it's also, I think, a little naive to think that's the only way you can help somebody. It's not really a healthy way to think that's the only way you can be there for somebody. This second playthrough, too, also kind of, I don't want to say gave me those same feelings, but also made me recognize a few things going on in my life currently now, too. Because I'm not going to act like I'm some holy saint either, because I'm not. I have had plenty of instances, too, where I was an asshole to someone, where I was the aggressing friend, and I'm not proud of it. The point I'm trying to make here is, the second time I played this, it really reaffirmed to me how lucky I am to be in a position where I do have friends and I do have a support system that is there for me, but also is not going to bullshit me. And generally what I mean by that is, you know, I have friends that aren't going to let me cross a line, or they're not going to stand for it if I cross the line, and, you know, I'm going to do the same for them. Because even as recently as a few years ago, like, I've had to reflect on how I talk and treat people in my own life. And like I said, there's definitely situations in my past where I wish I could go back and apologize, and I just can't. But point being, this game just kind of affirms to me, you know, how lucky I am to be in a position where I am, where I have that kind of support net. And also just reaffirming to me, you know, this whole perfect best friends fantasy that goes on in this game, and that they try to present like it's a normal and good thing, it's not really that. It can't be this perfect thing Max envisions with Chloe, and it also can't be this toxic back and forth Chloe has going on with Max for this entire game. Because here's the hard truth. you're going to drift away from people, and that's going to suck. But the thing about that is, for better and for worse, that's just life. It's strange. I had to do that. I had to do that. You'll find people in life you can share that connection with. And if you happen to have that kind of bond with someone for such a long time, that's awesome. But that's also not something you should feel is necessary to maintain, you know? Like sunk cost, I guess it's not really the best description for it, but like sunk cost fallacy kind of thing. Like, even if you invest that much time into it, it's not like you're obligated to constantly maintain it. And believe me, I know saying that out loud, that can fucking suck. Big time. Like, I have definitely had people that I care about that I've either had to cut off, or if they've cut off me, or even just the two of us have just gone in different directions in life and just haven't caught up or talked to one another. That can really suck, personally. Like, it can really hurt. But I also maybe understand how important it is to not only, you know, cultivate what I have now with the friendships and relationships that I have, but also not to be afraid and to know how important it is to go out there and cultivate brand new ones as well. Because that's just how life is. People are going to come and go in your life, and sometimes there's going to be a reason for it, sometimes there won't be. Either of them is okay. There's probably a reason Max didn't talk with Chloe for 5 years. Maybe there isn't. Either one is perfectly fine. What isn't perfectly fine is forming and keeping something toxic together all for the sake of this imaginary idea of being best friends forever. People who genuinely have that in life are very, very lucky. And you know, maybe that was the point that devs wanted to make. To have this really profound impact on its players about their lives and what they make of it. But considering this is my takeaway and reflection, and it's coming from such a despicably written character, I don't think that's obviously the takeaway they were intending. I am never opposed to games making me introspective. Some of my favorite games of all time do that. What I am against is when a game makes me relive memories that are, for lack of better description, traumatic, and frame it like it's supposed to be a good thing. I know that's an extremely personal takeaway, and I'm reading extremely deep into a game that probably isn't that deep. But that's how I feel. Because it's not just about Chloe Price being the absolute worst character I've had the displeasure of dealing with in a work of fiction. It's how this game has this element that makes me personally come face to face with a representation of, at best, really bad memories, and at worst, my own demons of harassment, bullying, manipulation, deceit, and toxicity, and presents it like it's something you should be proud of. And again, like I said, I hear all the time from people how this game left a positive impact on them, and how Chloe either played a big part of that or was that. And I have to ask, genuinely and honestly, bro, who hurt you? Let's get into more detailed thoughts I have about every single character in this game. I gave Chloe the Queen's treatment and Max the Princess treatment. Might as well try to give everyone else the... I don't know, what's lower than the Princess? A Jester? The Guards? The Peasants? Yeah, let's just say Peasants. Give the rest of the cast the Peasant treatment where I can. Well, besides Kate and maybe Warren. Joyce. Joyce is fine. She's probably the most normal character in this entire game. Which is, you know, saying a lot. But besides working at the diner and being Chloe's mother, I really don't think there's much that stands out about her. Which sucks, because I feel like I should like her more when she's this ordinary, but she's ordinary in the uninteresting character kind of way. William. Kind of the same thing as Joyce. Although you don't get to interact with him enough to really gauge much, other than that he's Chloe's dad and he's dead in the main timeline. Nathan. If I can appreciate one thing, it's that they made Nathan astronomically psychopathic. As in, he is so obviously a threat to society that absolutely everybody except Max and her friends is oblivious to. Dude literally whips out a gun or resorts to violence almost every single interaction he has. And if there's one thing the French developers got right in writing this game, it's that the institutions teaching him are absolutely doing nothing about it. Victoria. I don't know, man. She's just Regina George. Not much else to really say. And I think where they kind of went wrong here is that Life is Strange's tone doesn't really account for a character like this. Like, yeah, Regina sucks in Mean Girls, but Mean Girls is also a comedy. Her being that over the top is kind of part of the joke. Life is Strange plays that straight, so what you get is a character that you hate for the wrong reasons. Everything gets handed to her and you have to sit back and watch it happen. Everything gets handed to Regina George and she gets hit by a fucking bus. Frank. I can kind of see what they were trying to do with Frank.
having a very troubled character, but with just enough redeeming qualities to him to make you kind of empathize with him and what has happened to him. He's even got a cute dog. The problem to me, like I talked about, is that they do this pretty late in the game. Frank spends most of his time threatening Max and Chloe all over the place, and even in episode 4, he only cooperates with you if you choose your words carefully. One fuck up and he'll snap. As I remind you all, I had to figure out several times over, so it's hard for me to feel as much as the game wants me to in episode 5 talking to him when he literally threatens to kill Max and Chloe several times. Jefferson. I won't spend too much time here since I already talked about him being a pretty decent and creepy twist villain, just that I find it really funny that even when he monologues about killing you in episode 5, he's still doing those hand motions. You know, the ones that every single NPC in this game does whenever they're talking in any capacity. Like even in the game's most serious conversations, everybody has the exact same body language. David. I won't get too into this, but again, like Frank, I can see what they were trying to do with David, especially in episode 5 when he pours his heart out to Max about his past and trying to come to terms with his own actions in the game. The issue is, you know, besides having the same problems as Frank, the game's gotta awkwardly remind me every 2 seconds that he fought in a war. Principal Wells. Don't have much to really say here that I didn't already cover with him in episode 5. He's a man in an established role at a school that doesn't do anything about the problem kids and gets pissy with the students who aren't. Again, the French developers didn't miss on this. Samuel.
And watch your step around here, Max. After I sweep, I paint. The squirrels always come in the morning for food. I can hear them whisper. You and Arcadia Bay are connected by time and tide. So next time I have a question, I'm coming to you.
Okay, I know being weird is like his character, but I don't really know what they were trying to do here. Miss Grant.
Hi there, would you like to sign my petition? You gotta be fucking kidding. Just sign the stupid petition. I've got stuff to do. Are you gonna sign this, or will it be your surviving family members?
Other than this, I really couldn't tell you much. Seems like a nice lady, I don't know. Dana. As I mentioned before, I was really surprised with how much depth they put into Dana that you can entirely miss in this game. The conversations she has with Max are some of my favorites in the entire game. Like, no memes or anything, this is genuinely great stuff. And considering some of those have to do with a conversation as controversial as abortion, I respect what they did with her here. It's probably the most delicately they handle a touchy subject like this in the game. What exactly that says about this game's handling of touchy subjects, I'll leave that up to you. But still, it makes me wonder if Dana was meant to have a larger role in the game at some point. This is a lot to miss with just one of the side characters, and I wish we had more of her here. Juliet. Besides her first fight with Dana, I honestly couldn't tell you too much about Juliet besides her being a victim to Victoria's bullshit. Courtney. I feel like the devs might have wanted to do more to get you to empathize with Courtney in this game. You can use your time powers to get a spot on the list, and she talks about helping you with outfits and whatnot, but it never really goes past that. Taylor. On the other hand, they do this with Taylor, and it kinda comes across as manipulative. You can have conversations with her and find out her mom is not doing very well medically, and Max will express her sympathies because, well, yeah. But they do this just enough to almost make you forget about her role in what happened with Kate, or just being friends with Victoria at all. You're not getting me that easy, game. Logan. I don't know. I remember him in connection to the drama with Dana and Juliet. I remember he's the one harassing Daniel in the hallway. That's pretty much it. Zachary. Besides his involvement also in that drama, I also just remember him hitting Alyssa with this football.
Fuck this shit.
Alyssa. Man, the devs really had it out against her in this game. She gets so much thrown at her, literally, in this game, and Max has to use her powers to help her every single time. Poor girl's just walking bad luck. Also, this line is really funny.
Not now, Max. I'm contemplating shit.
Wait, what the fuck are you even contemplating? Brooke. Again, so fucking sorry I didn't know the name of your T-1000 1985 Model L combat drone, lady. But I don't really care for Brooke beyond this. Daniel. You can have him make a nice self-portrait of Max. He's kind of weird, but I don't know. Everyone in this game is. I guess that's why he doesn't stick out too much.
Maybe we'll just let's play it and see what we
You can
get.
have him make a nice self-portrait of Max. He's kind of weird, but I don't know. Everyone in this game is. I guess that's why he doesn't
Hold on, hold up. Okay, maybe I do need a live action. Maybe I do need a live action bit here. How did I not notice this the last several times I played this? Oh my god, I like spat all over my fucking keyboard here. I'm on the bit where I'm talking about Daniel here, and I just noticed that his fucking t-shirt is the goddamn Reddit Fedora meme. Oh my god. You know what, dude? You kind of deserve to be beat up for that. Oh my god. No wonder those jocks were fucking bullying him. Dear god, is that the kind of guy he is? Oh my god, dude. I'm fucking dying. Evan, again, so fucking sorry I couldn't remember the exact moment in history some photographer realized he created an entire subcategory of photography and literally shot himself over it just to see your portfolio. All you're good for is letting me make an obligatory metal pipe sound effect joke. I don't fucking know. Justin, Stoner 1. Trevor, Stoner 2. Stella. Honestly, don't remember much about her other than she hooks up with Warren in one of the altered timelines, and Max will say all this nice stuff to her in episode 4, even though I literally do not remember interacting with her at all. Luke. Shit, who the fuck are you? I think Max has like one conversation with you in episode 1, maybe one in episode 4, but that's it. Who are you? Why are you here? Are you sure you're not a cut character that accidentally made his way into this game? Hayden.
I just vaped some dang OG buds, so I can barely see you.
This is literally all I remember about Hayden, and you know what? I'm kind of okay with that. This line is raw as fuck. That one truck driver.
Bossy and smartass. Like you.
I know where you were on January 6th. The low-res bunny.
Cutest bunny ever.
Fucking Moonwee!
Rachel Amber. I don't know, man. She's dead. Alright, I'm looking through my notes here. I don't think there's anything else I need to do here. Let's see. Oh, yeah! I played this game a third time. Don't fuck with Life is Strange haters. We can't stop playing the fucking game. Yeah, I know. I played it a third time. Why did I do it? I don't know, man, because I hate myself. I wanted to get an idea on what exactly would happen if I deliberately made different choices and even outright made the wrong ones. And I did this one after writing most of the script. So if it sounds like I'm only making certain points I recognize now after just reviewing the game, this is why. I wanted to keep my initial thoughts separate from this replay of the game. There may be some details here and there that I still miss, but honestly, I've played enough Life is Strange after this playthrough. It's time I moved on to other stuff for this channel, like, I don't know, talking about Call of Duty for like the 26th time. I went back to the original version to play this third playthrough, and it's one I partially like to call the Scumbag Max playthrough. Because if you really make certain decisions or deliberately ignore others, you can make Max out to be a real piece of work in this game. And at times, it's kind of hilarious. You can rip into David more than you already did. I made his life a living hell in this playthrough. Enough of a hell that Max's social media was blowing up against him too, like he was Twitter's main character of the day. No. Hold up. Is that a fucking Doge meme? I mean, hey, I guess David is the kind of character that would probably simp for Elon Musk, right? I also tore Victoria a new one in this playthrough as well. Like, really tore it. Kind of makes a certain interaction and double exposure even funnier if that's what you did in your initial playthrough. I did notice more bugs in the original version this go around too. There were several points during the game where I had some pretty bad screen tearing. During that moment in episode 5 where Max meets with Warren, the lip syncing for her just decided to totally give up. That was kind of funny to see. I also had the game crash on me while starting up episode 4, and when I booted back up, everything worked as intended, except the music was totally cut off. I don't get it. Why is it the music that's the most unstable thing in this game? Despite making deliberately different choices, there were a lot of moments of dialogue that really hammered in how little of an effect your decisions in this game have. I had multiple times where I would pick a different dialogue option only for characters to react the exact same way. Which makes me wonder what the point of having that option is, especially when it isn't going to change your relationship with them in any meaningful way. Yeah, this is admittedly a problem in other games like this I've played, even The Walking Dead, but there's something that's really glaring about it here, that it doesn't even present an illusion that your dialogue choices matter in swaying characters' conversations with you, even the slightest bit. I want to delve a little deeper into the choices the game puts you through here, besides, well, the ones I've already gone over. Because it's one thing to have a final choice make all of your decisions null and void beforehand, but maybe you could argue that isn't the point. Because all of these decisions shape who Max is as a character at least, as well as Chloe if you pick her ending. It's about the journey, not the destination kind of thing. But the journey blows too. I can't recall a game like this in a hot second that has had so many decisions that are just totally inconsequential as the story goes on. Example, Episode 3, the Handicap Fund.
You can leave it or seal it. My first 2 playthroughs, I left it because Max was a goody two-shoes. But in my Scumbag Max playthrough, I chose to seal it. My initial thought when I did this was that maybe this makes your interaction with Frank in episode 4 easier. You know, you give him the money, so maybe he lets you off a little easier when trying to get the codebook. And to my shock, but not surprise, nope. This does not happen. Not only does it let me decide giving the money to him in the first place, but my conversation after giving it to him played out the exact same way, even down to having to redo the entire thing after picking one wrong option. What is the point of this then? Why give players this illusion that stealing the money will actually help anything? There's a lot of small decisions like this throughout the whole game. Early on, you can decide whether or not to sign Miss Grant's petition to prevent David's cameras from going up around campus, complete with this pretty odd line she talks about with Native Americans.
The tribes who were here first, who welcomed the settlers. Both cultures found a mutual symbiosis and thrived.
I don't think that's exactly how it happened in real life. I thought that by not signing this, maybe this could affect Max and Chloe's break-ins in later episodes, since, you know, ignore it and you let David's measures pass. It doesn't. Not even a hint of dialogue somewhere that even implies they caught Max and Chloe in 4K thanks to David's measures. This is never brought up in the story ever again besides the 1 or 2 times Max remembers it even exists. You can get a cop's message on Chloe's phone and decide whether or not to erase it. This does nothing. When Max travels through a Polaroid for the first time, you can choose to leave a marking on the fireplace. This does nothing. Every episode, you can choose to help Alyssa from her bad luck. This does nothing. This is frustrating because dontnod did think about the implications of your actions for later episodes. Again, all of your decisions related to Kate play a big role in helping her off the roof. Right before that, when you speak to Jefferson, you can choose to snitch on David. I did this in all of my playthroughs, but in my first 2, I never took a photo, so I had no evidence.
Even though you know Max could have done that.
But okay, my 3rd playthrough, I did exactly this, and it helped my case when I blamed David for Kate's suicide at the end of the episode. And on that note too, I initially chose to blame Nathan here again before David just to see what happened, and it actually accounted for the fact that I hid from Principal Wells that Nathan had a gun. And since I wasn't collecting enough evidence against Nathan, my testimony against him completely fell apart. Not that that changes your interactions with him later on, he still is a little shit to you. I wish the entire game had decisions like this. It actually gives you the feeling that your actions have consequences. At least then, the ending's problems would only be isolated there. Too bad pretty much everyone else had the same idea as me in my first 2 plays and blamed Nathan. This is another problem. A lot of these choices are extremely skewed in one direction. Now, creating a 50-50 option can be hard, and to Life is Strange's credit, it got a few of those. Whether or not you shoot Frank, letting Warren beat up Nathan, or stopping him, the final decision in the game, somehow. But as you play the game, you'll notice that a lot, and I mean a lot of choices and options very obviously want you to lean in one direction. Most people aren't gonna like Max being a total bitch towards Victoria in one of the game's first decisions. Of course they're gonna go with the one where Max is a softer, more sentimental character. Of course most players are gonna answer Kate's phone call against Chloe, knowing she's going through an extremely difficult time in her life. Of course, most people are gonna side with Chloe against David when he's literally a prime suspect in the game for everything going on. Of course, most players aren't gonna lead a dog to getting hit in the street. Even in my Scumbag Max playthrough, I wasn't scummy enough to do that. Everyone's gonna take the route in the game that the story very clearly nudges players towards. Do you want to get Frank's codebook peacefully, or live with the reality of Chloe killing him and his dog? You're gonna get it peacefully. Do you want to warn Victoria that she's about to be assaulted in ways she can't even imagine, or do you tell her to fuck off when you're fully aware that doing so could quite literally result in killing her? Chances are, you're at least gonna try to warn her. Do you refuse Chloe's dare to kiss her, or do you go for it? Like, come on, the audience is gamers. What the hell do you think most people picked? That's not even considering the number of choices in the game that are skewed because you can completely miss them. Seems like I'm not the only one who didn't know Dana's entire side arc existed. This is the thing with choice-driven games like this. There's gotta be purpose to the options you can pick. You can't have these decisions just for the sake of having them. Why do you think most Telltale games only have like 5 or 6 core ones they summarize? Because those are the most influential ones. They're the ones that genuinely affect the narrative as it plays out, even if they do end up skewed. How does changing Warren's grade on his exam benefit me in any way besides seeing my choices at the end and saying, oh, I didn't even realize you could do that. If you can go through most of a game not even knowing a choice existed, or, doing the choice and not having it affect anything anyways, chances are there's no reason for that decision to exist in the first place. I do have to bring this point up because I know somebody is going to say this, because I'm bringing up all this stuff about, all of these choices not having any meaning to them, and you might be thinking, well, didn't you like what you said about Dana earlier? And yes, I did like all that side content with Dana. The thing is, though, that doesn't pretend like that's actually going to affect my choices in the narrative of Life is Strange. All of the other things I'm talking about, they show up at the end of every episode, and they do nothing. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make, is there's nothing wrong with having choices or decisions that aren't going to affect the narrative. Like I said, the whole side arc with Dana, that's perfectly fine. And going back to what I said about Alyssa, something I did kind of, I guess, nix there that I didn't really talk about, is every time when you do help Alyssa, she does have at least a little bit of conversation with you. So I do like that there are decisions that help the world, feel more alive and lively here. The issue is the fact that there's so many of them that are presented like they're supposed to make a difference in your decision making, in the narrative of Life is Strange, and they just don't. And like I said, I think that's why it's so effective in Telltale games where they only have 5 choices, because these are the decisions that are going to affect the narrative. Everything else, it's going to affect your interactions with characters, yes, but it's not going to affect the main narrative. And I think that's what Life is Strange gets wrong with having so many of these decisions show up at the end of each episode. None of them actually affects the narrative. Like, you can add them there to kind of flesh out the world, but don't try to present it in a way where it's going to somehow affect the narrative, because most of these don't. But the thing I recognized the most this go-around really upset me a lot. And surprisingly, it wasn't with Chloe. It was with Kate. Now for this playthrough, I generally decided to put myself in the headspace of a fan that's head over heels for Chloe and side with her every time I possibly could. And then sacrifice her at the end anyways, but I did go back so I could finally see what happened in the ending Sacrifice in Arcadia Bay, which, side note, is a pretty lame ending. I mean, both of them are, as I went into, but this one's probably worse for me with how quickly it wraps things up. But back on track. I deliberately sided with Chloe. This included ignoring Kate's phone call. And I also took a picture of David in the prior episode, even though she could have done that and intervened to help to Kate if the time powers were consistent, but I won't get into that again. Anyways, I get to the roof sequence, this time with no guide to help me save her, and the responses I got were,
Did you come to get another Pulitzer shot like yesterday, Max? More like you wanted another shot for the Max Caulfield scrapbook. You want another now? Huh? You wanted to help by ignoring my phone call? Don't say anything if you're going to use a dead phone excuse. No!
Like, you pick 2 wrong options and Kate really more or less says, "Go fuck yourself, Max," and then jumps. But then I thought about it more. This happened to me because I was specifically choosing the wrong choices and the choices against her. Can you imagine a regular player with no knowledge of any of this playing the game, getting confronted with this sequence, and their experience with Kate is this?
Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks for nothing, Max. Max, why didn't you do anything when David harassed me yesterday? I'm sorry you didn't do anything to help, but you're just like everybody else here.
I've been spending a lot of time with this game over the years, and I never knew Kate could act like this if you didn't help her on her terms. What if I really did take a photo of her and David to help her? What if I did happen to miss context-sensitive things, like wiping away a link to her video in the bathroom? And most importantly, what am I supposed to take away from this? That if I'm not giving Kate all the attention in the world and helping her on terms she deems favorable, that she'll reach this decision? Do you have any idea how insanely toxic that is? That a character on the brink of suicide would essentially tell me to fuck off if I genuinely did all these actions to help her in my own way? To have a character like Kate suddenly blowing up at Max even when she explains multiple times she's just trying to help her in her own way? Oh, motherfucker, this game gaslit me into liking her, didn't it? I did a whole ass section of the video on Chloe not doing that for me. Now you're gonna do that with one of the few characters I actually like? Alright, y'all, so it is pretty late at night here. Excuse how I look right now. But I did, as I'm editing this, I wanted to add like one last minute point here. I'm actually just about to finish editing this here, finally. After how many months of work? Like four and a half months.
Because originally I was gonna play this part as like more of like a Joker bit, but honestly, like looking back on it now and like going back through the footage for the game and like my own footage here, I feel like I probably have to discuss this more in like a more serious manner and try to get my point across more in a professional way, considering the subject matter of what I'm talking about here. Also, excuse me if I'm like looking at my computer too much here, because I like actually condensed all my thoughts here, because I really wanted to get like written down on paper here, all my thoughts, so I know what I'm talking about and I'm not just rambling here. But I will start with this. I don't think anyone at dontnod intended for this whole thing to come across this way. And based on what I watched in the developer commentary, I do think they genuinely wanted to try handling touchy subject matter like this in a very sincere and meaningful way. But I do still think that they really missed the mark here by having Kate act this demeaning towards Max if the player does decide to make these choices. And I know and fully understand that if people ever reach this kind of headspace, that they're not thinking straight. With that said, however, I don't think it's a very responsible thing to talk about a serious subject like this and have this character act so condescending towards you when the game frames these choices as ones that are still trying to help Kate in one way or another. Like with the photo, you choose to take that photo, Kate gives Max shit for it 3 times in the game, and each time just dismisses any kind of explanation Max gives or tries to give. And yeah, it's the exact same shit I complained about with Chloe. So yeah, maybe it is just me, but I do find it kind of manipulative that there is potentially an experience you can have with Kate where she can be this absolutely dismissive towards Max. Let alone that this is what causes her to reach that decision on the roof if those are the choices you made here. I'm trying to approach this as sensitively as I can because I know this is like a very, very serious topic here. I still don't think it's a very healthy message to send to players when you're telling them if you're not here for this person 24/7 and you say even one or even do one thing that might be considered like out of line for them, like that's what's going to cause them to reach this decision. Like, I don't think that's what they were intending, but that's the way it comes across. Because originally the rant I was going to have here was talking about how this is bordering on Kate like using these problems as leverage to dangle in front of Max. And again, I don't think that's clearly what the intention was, like in any way, shape, or form. But also in thinking about through all of this more clearly, I also don't think it's that necessarily far-fetched to reach that conclusion about Kate's when this is potentially the way that she can treat you if you decide to make these choices. Especially when almost every decision that you make related to Kate is still framed in a way where Max's ultimate goal is still to try and help her. And what really pisses me off is the fact that, like, if you help Kate on her own terms, that will make her more sympathetic, but if you don't side with her on her terms, then she just becomes just as toxic as the rest of the cast is. And if Kate had kept that kind of, like, reserved tone that she has throughout the entire game, like, no matter what decision you'd make, like with Max in the photo here, so, like instead of getting pissed off 3 times, like she does in the game for Max taking a photo, imagine if like she was just more sad and upset that Max didn't intervene. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to say like I want the character to be more depressed or anything like that, but like just the way that she would react if it was different, I feel like it would still manage to make it effective without it coming across this way. You know what I mean? Another example is the whole thing with the phone call. Like, instead of lashing out at Max for not picking up that phone call, Kate asks Max if she did something wrong or if that reflects it on her instead of how it reflected on Max. Is it making sense what I'm saying here? Like, I feel like even just having Kate's reactions to everything change, or just having her reaction not be like bitter and more so just sad, like that would have kept things effective for her without making her out to be someone bitter because Max isn't able to support her in the way that she wants Max to support her. So yeah, I don't want to use the term gaslit liberally because everyone uses that fucking term for the wrong reasons, but that's what I felt. I felt gaslit after I played it this 3rd time. Because after this 3rd run, I realized that Kate was essentially doing the same thing Chloe does by having Kate be so microaggressive to Max if she's not the one getting attention from her. They just did a better job at hiding it for her than Chloe. And considering what she goes through, I think that's kind of fucked up to throw on a player, you know? Again, I know this wasn't their intention, and I do applaud them for wanting to tackle this kind of subject matter in a game like this, but I don't think this is it. To me, Kate shouldn't have been a character that acted tragic. She should have been a character that was genuinely tragic, I guess is what I'm trying to get across. Don't even have the potential for her to be this bitter person towards Max. Just have her keep her reserved self,
across any of the decisions you make and have her reactions reflect that. Because this doesn't really seem in character for Kate to act this way when you have choices where it seems more likely that she would act in this more reserved way. Alright, I'm gonna throw it back to past me when I was recording and doing everything for this video like a month ago here and when I was producing and everything, because there's another character that I got gaslit into. Take it away, old me. God, fuck you too, Warren. I thought you were pretty cool. A little weird, but cool. And then I played episode 1 a third time and you said this shit.
So you're sensitive.
Ouch, that sounds awful the way you say it.
How so?
Sensitive usually means won't be having sex with you.
Bruh, that is creepy as fuck. Why would you even say that? And don't you try to hide. I saw you peeking around the corner trying to get a look into Max's bedroom, you fucking perv. Damn. Everyone, and I mean everyone in this town fucking sucks, huh? You know what? Destroy it all. Just destroy the whole fucking city. Destroy Chloe too. Destroy all of it and have Max leave. Double Exposure was on to something when Max left all this shit behind. Deck 9, I forgive you. Actually, you know what? I take that back, not entirely. Okay, so now I bet you're asking why. Why would I spend all this time, the past 4.5 months, and the past 2 hours or however long this video is, talking about a game that I think is at best mediocre? And believe me, this is a question I have been asking several times while I'm working on this video, and I think it boils down to a few things. I think this calls back to what I said at the beginning about the game's sense of genuine passion, because despite this game's several problems I have with it, it's still a game that really tried. I know you could say that about any kind of creative endeavor. I'm sure everybody who worked on Concord could say the exact same thing. Doesn't change that the game, unfortunately for them, really sucked. So what exactly makes Life is Strange different to me? And it was while watching the developer commentary of the game that I truly realized the scope of Life is Strange's genuine passion. Because by all means, Life is Strange is a video game that should not exist. Dontnod was in a bad situation. Remember Me was a flop. They were scrambling to get a new AAA game out the door. Publishers were rejecting them. Anytime they happened to bring Life is Strange to anyone else, it came with either scrutiny or pushback against what it actually wanted to accomplish. They were a studio full of so many people who had a real love and passion for what they did, but weren't even given a chance to really shine or improve. You look at so many studios now who don't make great games getting shuttered the instant they don't do well. I joke about Concord a lot, and yes, that game was a massive miss. But that also doesn't change the reality that the developer, Firewalk Studios, was a team full of genuine and talented people who got dealt a really bad hand with their first game, and now they aren't even getting the chance to try again and learn from their mistakes. This is an industry where your first outing is paramount, especially nowadays. By all accounts and metrics, Dontnod should have been shut down after Remember Me flopped. Or best case scenario, they'd be stuck making really small scale projects that they weren't really passionate about. It was only by complete luck that they happened to pitch Life is Strange to Square Enix and they absolutely loved it. As I said at the beginning, Square Enix was very hands-off when it came to making this game. They kinda let Dontnod do its thing. And we have a game here that is flawed, and it's very flawed, and I think it shows its flaws a lot, but it also comes forward with an uncompromised vision. Everything here was done on the developer's terms. They finished the game that they set out to accomplish without many hurdles from upper management. It's an artistic vision that, while it may not be one I necessarily love entirely, is one I respect at the very least because it's uncompromised. In this day and age in the video game industry, how often do you even see that happen on that scale? Unless you're a studio with a lot of clout like, say, Naughty Dog or Nintendo, or even a person who has more than proven their value in the industry like Hideo Kojima and then making Death Stranding, how often does this actually happen? It definitely doesn't happen with a studio like Dontnod in their situation, on the brink of collapse, desperate to put out at least one more thing, and then having that one more thing end up becoming one of the most popular narrative adventure series in modern gaming. In a weird way, I can respect a game that makes me want to create a video like this. Maybe this game is still doing something right for me to even make it in the first place, let alone have this odd fascination with it that I have. Hell, I respect the game over just the fact that it exists and did so well. It's a classic comeback story. Dontnod was ready to completely shut down, but they stuck to making this game, and against all odds, it became a massive hit and stopped them from shuttering their doors. And in this day and age, especially with the state that the industry is in, I can appreciate that this game, which was essentially a passion project that could have possibly been their last, is the reason a lot of good people got to keep their jobs. And I think to a certain degree, despite the very strong negative feelings I have with this game, this is kind of why I still have an appreciation and fascination with Life is Strange to this day. It's not a series that was made out of corporate greed or to jump on what was trending at the time. Mostly anyways. This is a video game I think a lot about for the wrong reasons. As I mentioned in my rant about Chloe, this is a game that reminds me of some really toxic vitriol I've had to deal with in my life, and honestly, as fascinated as I am by this game and this whole series, I don't see myself coming back to this first game after this video, at least for a long time. But when I play this game and I'm reminded of the game's worst aspects, it makes the game's good moments stand out for me even more, and by extension, make me realize how badly the developers at least tried to do good by the kind of things they were trying to accomplish with this game. I personally don't think it really sticks a landing if the last however long this video ends up being wasn't enough indication. Hell, there's some things in the game that I think are really problematic still, even if the developers' intentions were good. But when I see the game's better elements shine, when I watch the way the team at dontnod talk about this game, how much and how badly they want to do justice for this game and make it the best it could be, how much freedom they had in making this game a reality, I think that's kind of what draws me to this game now. Yeah, to a certain degree it is the things I do legitimately enjoy about the game, sometimes for the wrong reasons, but what I will always love and appreciate about Life is Strange, even in my hatred for it, is that it even exists in the first place. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Dontnod should not have existed after Remember Me, at least in the way they do now. But this game here, this one fucking game, it was their baby. It was what they were willing to die for. And now look at where they are. Look at how their baby has grown. Life is Strange represents a lot of different things to a lot of different people. To me personally, it represents the peak creative process. A process that isn't done for personal gain, for fame, for corporate, for finances, for notoriety, for any of that. A creative process that's done simply because you wanted to.
It was really great to see so many fan arts, so many letters, so many fiction, cosplays.
The reactions were fantastic, way beyond our previous expectations.
It was impossible to expect a huge community like this and so passionate fans, and it's great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We started the project by making the game we wanted to make for ourselves, but at the end it's really making a game for the players because that's what's important.
So, if you guys can believe it, I was originally going to cover everything for this video. Like, everything. I was going to cover the first, Before the Storm, 2, True Colors, Double Exposure, maybe briefly touch on this, which I guess I did in this video. So, originally, my plan was I was going to talk about Double Exposure after it came out, because I wanted to talk about that game. After I gave it some thought, I realized, oh, I should probably, establish my thoughts on this game first. And then that evolved into wanting to cover the entire series, and that was the original plan until this video ended up as long as it did. And here I am now, 4 months later, and I've only talked about the first game. God help me when I go to talk about the rest of the series, because holy shit. There is probably a lot more I wanted to talk about, and I kind of had a feeling when I eventually talked about Life is Strange on this channel, it was going to be a long video. But honestly, I have spent so much of my time dedicated to talking about this game and researching and reviewing this game for the past several months, I am ready to move on. Considering the game, and by extension the series, is celebrating its 10th anniversary this year, God, has it already been 10 already? Oh my god. I think it's fitting to make a video only focused on this one. Never anticipated it being this insanely involved, but I knew I had to cover a lot when it came to the first game. This game left an impact on me. Just not the one it probably tried to leave. And to give the game some grace, it really isn't as bad as I remembered it being. I still really like Max as a protagonist a lot, even if she can be pretty dumb. I like a handful of side characters and side content. I think the attention to detail is pretty good when they actually pay attention to it. There's a lot of really great and neat ideas here. The execution of them isn't always the most graceful, but the ideas are still there. It's just
God, Chloe leaves such a massive stain on what would otherwise be an average game with cringeworthy dialogue, a creative but inconsistent game mechanic, and characters that are wildly over the top in just how terrible of people they really are. I'm sure you might be wondering too, since this is still a review and I still try to answer this question by the end of a video, is this a game I can recommend playing?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know.
Look, ultimately, I don't think you'd be missing much if you skip it. Or at the very least, try episode 1 and go from there, since the first episode is free on all platforms. My fascination with this game, even with all of its flaws, is not going to translate to everybody. If you play it, you'll either hate Chloe and want to shut the game off, or you'll find something endearing about her somehow throughout episode 1. You don't get this big of a fan base and hate base for a single character from nothing. Like, I really cannot emphasize enough that a lot of your enjoyment of this game is going to hinge on whether or not you like Chloe. Objectively, it is an interesting time capsule of a game, a time when everybody wanted to be the next Walking Dead, and this game came the closest to that. So if you're interested in it from a more gaming history standpoint, it's definitely an interesting product of its time. One that, frankly, I'm happy we moved past. I get why this episodic format was so popular for games at the time, but I'm glad we're back to developers just giving us the full product. Well, in theory anyways. I wanted to make a series analysis, not just to look back on each of the games, but to find out what really draws me to them, and why I keep playing and talking about them throughout the years. Because this game is not good, but there's still something about it that I love. Reflecting on this game throughout this entire video this much has made me discover exactly why. Now if I think those feelings are the same or different for the rest of the games, I guess I'll have to find out. I think Double Exposure may have answered that question back when I played it, but not only is that a video for much later down the line, I feel like I have to play the rest of the series to really confirm if the answers I found are authentic for the rest of the series. Not about Chloe though, I think that's been answered there and back again at this point.
Hey guys, what if we made the next game all about her? Oh god.